Good morning, everyone. Man, it just got quiet like really fast. You put a lot of pressure on me to get this meeting started. Dan, I even have a board member giving me grief over here. Sorry we're running a little late. They had a quick meeting in the morning, but welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting. It is Tuesday, July 11th, and the time is 9:05. And we are going to start this meeting in memory of Charmaine Tyrell. So if you could just join me for a moment of silence. All right, thank you. All right. How about Supervisor Ding? Will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? You've been singing. Thank you, Supervisor Dings. All right. Clerk of the Board, can we get a roll call, please?
Supervisor Canepa?
Here.
Supervisor Villapudois?
Present.
Supervisor Patty? Supervisor Ding?
Yes.
Chairman Rickman?
Yes. Thank you. All right. We're going to go off to our recognitions and presentations, and I will turn it over to you once again, Clerk of the Board.
Thank you, Chairman. This first recognition was requested by District 3 Supervisor Patty. As he comes down to the floor, this is the recognition of the San Joaquin County Human Service Agency's first Fatherhood Festival in San Joaquin County. I would also like to invite the following people representing the organizations that participated in bringing this forward to receive this recognition, including Justin Orion from Human Services Agency, Giovanna Valdoris from First Five San Joaquin, Gus Pacheco and Tony Yadan from Parents by Choice, William Lattimore and Aaron Edwards of Mary Magdalene, Ella Burse of AspiraNet, Elder Penny McConnell from Victory and Praise, Gladys Mitchell of Victory Community Support Services, and Ophelia Torres from El Concilio. And I'll turn it over to Supervisor Patty to read the recognition.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It gives me great honor to recognize those of you here, the effort that you put forward to bring light and celebrate fathers right here in San Joaquin County, and really leading the way for not only the state of California, but for America to exemplify the important role fathers have. And I'd love to hear from each and every one of you in a moment, but I do have a brief proclamation to read, and then we'll hear from you. Thank you. Certificate of recognition presented on behalf of San Joaquin County and all of the supervisors in celebration of the Fatherhood Festival and recognition of the first San Joaquin County Fatherhood Festival held on June 10th, which provided interactive games for fathers and children, food trucks, live music, resources for fathers, and much more dedicated to celebrating and supporting the important role of fathers in our community. Research shows that fathers help children with school readiness, verbal, cognitive, and motor development, as well as improving a child's overall positive life outcome and life decision-making as an adult. San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors recognizes the San Joaquin County Human Services Agency, First Five of San Joaquin, Parents by Choice, Mary Magdalene, Community Services, AspiraNet, Victory in Praise, Native Corps, Three Rivers Indian Lodge, Victory Community Support Services, El Concilio of California, Friends of Yosemite Street Village, Child Abuse Prevention Council, Dignity Health, Health Plan of San Joaquin, New Spirit Missionary Baptist Church, Prevail, San Joaquin County Child Support Services, San Joaquin County Public Library, San Joaquin County WorkNet, San Joaquin County Children's Services, and Valley Mountain Regional Center, for whom this festival would not have been possible without their extensive work and support of fathers throughout San Joaquin County. We thank you for your outstanding services to the community. This is presented on July 11th of 2023, which is today. So we have this great honor to have you all here, and the effort that you took is an organic effort that you led this charge to celebrate fathers here. So I'd love to, please, Justin, if you say a couple words, and again, love to hear from all of you present today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is quite an honor to be recognized here today by all of you, and to be in this building being recognized for our work. I would say that primarily I could not have done this without this whole entire team. We do consider ourselves a collective, and we keep expanding so that we can make sure that we're bringing the best we can to our community. I just had a couple brief words I'm going to say. This event really stood as a testament to the power of community and the importance of celebrating fatherhood. And in 2019, our county's Children's Service Bureau developed a strategy in our system improvement plan that highlighted a strategy called the Fathers Initiative. And so there are many elements that comprise the Fathers Initiative, but one of them was creating this work group of community providers and developing some types of resources and supports within our community that would be highlighted for dads specifically, because most of the programs in our counties typically are directed towards mothers. And so when we did focus groups and met with dads, what we were finding was these programs didn't always speak to what their needs were as fathers. And so what we're trying to do is make a very concerted effort in our community to make sure that we are actually serving fathers, because we know that it greatly impacts the health, well-being of the children in their lives. It helps the mother be a more successful mother, whether they're in a relationship or not. And so once we identified the needs as we came together as a collective, we started kind of looking around at what were the actual services available that were speaking to those needs. And at some point, we noticed we had quite a strong list. So we created this resource toolkit, which holds all this information and support for dads. And then we're partnering with First Five of San Joaquin, and they have included this as a PDF on their website, and they have allocated a specific page that is for dads. It's dads tips, resources, and all sorts of things, and it's just for dads on the First Five website. And so then when we got to that point, we realized we needed a community event. And so we partnered with Yosemite Street, and they were incredible. The merchants, the Friends of Yosemite Street Village, they all banded together and embraced this. They supported it and participated in it, and they made it an even better special event than what we had hoped. So we are very honored and happy that we were able to partner with such a great group and community in Midtown. And so the idea of publicly celebrating fathers and their value while also providing resources and support. When we embarked on this journey, we aimed to create an inclusive platform that would celebrate, inspire, and support fathers from all walks of life. And today, as we reflect on the success of the Fatherhood Festival, we are overwhelmed by the impact we are already seeing in our community. And through this planning process, we envisioned an event that would not only provide a space for fathers to connect and bond with their children, but also offer a rich tapestry of educational resources, workshops, and engaging events. We aim to foster an environment where fathers could learn and grow and share their experiences with one another, and strengthening the bonds between them and their children. And as I look back at the festival, I'm filled with immense pride, witnessing all the joy on the faces of fathers and children alike, observing their laughter, hearing children who made Father's Day cards at the event, reading them out loud for the whole group to hear. It was a particularly touching moment. Observing laughter and conversations in the moments of connection reassures us that we achieved our goal. However, none of that would be possible without the unwavering support of our partners, sponsors, volunteers, and the incredible community that embraced our vision. So our goal is to ensure that the Father Festival and our Father Appreciation Week are supported as annual events and encourage members and businesses in our community to locate and deliver father-focused services. I want to extend my heartfelt appreciation to our team, whose passion and tireless efforts brought this event to life. Their commitment, creativity, unwavering determination made this festival an unforgettable experience for all. It has been a pleasure to work with a group of community members who joined together with a common goal and gradually became a community-based collective. And today, as we celebrate this recognition, let us not forget the importance of acknowledging fathers, what this is all about, and their lives and the pivotal role they play in shaping our communities. May this event serve as a reminder that supporting and nurturing fatherhood is not only a responsibility, but a privilege that benefits us all. And on behalf of our entire team, I want to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you on this board for this honor and for recognizing the importance of promoting and celebrating fatherhood. Together, let us continue to create a community that cherishes and empowers fathers, fostering stronger families and a brighter future for all.
Thank you. Please, now's not the time to be shy. Step up and let's talk about the impetus and the importance of fathers and why you guys have done this festival. Thank you.
Giovanna Vialdores with First Five San Joaquin, and thank you so much for this acknowledgement. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of this collaborative and to see all of the great fruit that has come from it. And we're really excited about the future endeavors. We know that a great foundation has been laid for this work, and that there's so much more to come. So thank you so much, Justin, for your leadership, and thank you again for this acknowledgement.
Director Woods.
Speak in here, and I really do want to thank this board and Supervisor Patty for bringing this recognition forward. Certainly want to thank the team. The team did a fabulous job. Justin did an amazing job carrying forward our effort to ensure that child welfare policies and practices recognize the importance of fathers. And I do want to say, Supervisor Patty, when I met with you back in 2019 on a separate issue, I mentioned this initiative, and your enthusiasm from the beginning was evident, and I appreciate that, and appreciate you recognizing this event today. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director. And I want to just reiterate that this is just the beginning. I really want to make this a massive endeavor that every year, annually, we do this and we make sure it's county-wide so that all of the cities can participate or even launch their own regional. But we really need to, this effort is a launch pad of where we can go. We've even talked about engaging with County Office of Education and other departments and bringing a positive message to our high schools, the important role that fathers have and how integral we are, men are, and every one of these supervisors have had an important role to their own families and their children's lives. So anybody else want to speak? I'm going to turn it to the board. Please.
No glutton for punishment here. But I also want to, you mentioned a launch pad. I want to recognize that the team will actually be presenting at the 2023 the County Welfare Directors Association of California conference in Anaheim in October, and presenting the Fatherhood Initiative presentation. And the presentation is entitled, with me for a second, it got a wonderful name. It was Fathers Matter, collaborating with communities to reimagine father-focused engagement and service delivery. So.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And any way that we could help or participate to stand behind you and show our support, we're there 1,000%. So thank you. Appreciate it. We turn to the board now. Supervisor Ding.
I really don't know what to say, to be honest with you. Thank you for your commitment to service here. I guess as a father, my sense of humor is not good on this subject, and I'm thinking of all these funny things that should and could be said about our roles traditionally as fathers, as we transition from fathers to Disneyland dads to doing the best we can to at least showing up. And I don't think anybody has ever been a perfect father. So your willingness to step forward in the community and help others step in is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Supervisor Canepa.
Thank you. As we found, parenting and fathering has gotten more and more difficult as time's gone on with all the COVID and anxiety, and so it's amazing that you guys did this. I wish I would have made the event. We had a bunch of stuff that day, so I apologize for not attending. But I mean, it takes a village, and I think that's what the basis of the change would be, because the father figure is so many different people that fill those roles now. So to give the services and the accolades and the skills and the things that we can, make society better, I think is important for us. And I want to thank Tom for bringing this forward. I appreciate that. He's a good dad, so he goes at it, and for his daughter, it's amazing. So thank you guys for the work that you did.
Supervisor Villapudua.
Thank you, Supervisor Patty. Well, it's a great lineup of community leaders there, and I appreciate everything you guys do. And honoring fathers is a great idea. So many fathers are so meaningful to their families, and I look around the room, there's so many great fathers, Tom being one. But thank you guys for doing that for fathers, and appreciate everything.
Chairman Rickman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Again, thank you all for putting this on. This event was awesome, and it's about time, recognize fathers. The importance of a father, a dad is tremendous. It's huge. And, they are essential for the home and their children. I think the majority of us up here are dads, and, we take that job seriously, and it's full of love. And the importance of father, it can be seen physically, emotionally, spiritually, and, it needs to be part of that family unit. And one thing, when I saw this on the agenda, again, Supervisor, thank you for bringing this forward, but there are unique influence that dads have on their families. I'm just going to read off a few here. A father's strength can be powerful. A dad's words can be fueling and inspirational. Hugs from a dad can be deeply comforting. A dad's smile can install joy and confidence. Time with a dad can be fun and productive. A dad's physicality can be challenging. A dad's guidance can be life-changing and foundational. A father's correction can be life-saving and life-giving. And adventures with a dad can be exciting and memorable. Yeah, I know my daughters, being younger, going on fishing trips, and something that's stayed with them, in their 2021, they still talk about it. Trust me, they don't want to go fishing with me anymore because they're teenagers. But again, this is exceptional, and I agree with Supervisor Patty. This is something that we should have annually, and to recognize our dads out there. So thank you, and thank you all.
I'll invite a couple of comments, and then we'll invite you all down for a photograph. We have certificates for everybody. But I just want to appreciate each and every one of you, the efforts we have, and as the supervisors have all taken an important role in their families' lives. I have a daughter, and being present, not being perhaps perfect, and oftentimes having conversation with my daughter of how I can improve being a dad, but just being present in her life and having a father in my life. And you start to look at the statistical, then there's empirical evidence of that importance of having that male role model, that father in your life, and the outcome. And if you start to look at our budget every year and what we spend on criminal justice and incarceration and all of the impacts of what happens to people that are without guidance, without structure, without accountability from an early childhood. So we know that this is an important and empirical value to our society. So this is something that we can go statewide and push this on and make this a California initiative and then lead that throughout the nation. That'll be important. I'll just share this little interesting article I read. In Africa, there was a herd of elephants. They removed all the male elephants as an experiment. And all the junior elephants were just misbehaving like crazy and just absolutely being juvenile. They reintroduced the male elephants back in, and the behaviors changed. And it wasn't that they got beat up. It wasn't that they were, all of a sudden spanked and disciplined, but just that male presence had a significant role in the health and behavior of the entire herd. And that's an important part of how that father is going to have influence in our lives. So we celebrate, we recognize and appreciate what you did organically. You did this on your own. And we really are standing here to cheer you on and to support you for that next phase of how we can evolve this into a bigger effort throughout this region. So thank you all. Come forward for a photograph and a certificate, please. Supervisors, please join.
Next, we have the request to proclaim the week of July 16th through the 22nd, 2023 as pretrial, probation, and parole supervision week in San Joaquin County. And I would like to invite Assistant Probation Chief Emily Hammond to the podium as I read this proclamation. Whereas community corrections is an essential part of the justice system, and whereas community corrections professionals uphold the law with dignity while recognizing the right of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity, and whereas community correction professionals are responsible for supervising adult and juvenile offenders in the community, and whereas community corrections professionals are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders, and whereas community correction professionals work in partnership with community agencies and groups, and whereas community corrections professionals promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy, and whereas community correction professionals provide services, support, and protection for victims, and advocate community and restorative justice, and whereas community corrections professionals are a true force for positive change in their communities. Now therefore be it resolved that the San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the week of July 16th through the 22nd, 2023 as pretrial, probation, and parole supervision week in San Joaquin County, and encourages all citizens to honor these community corrections professionals and to recognize their achievements. Presented this 11th day of July 2023. Chairman Rickman.
Thank you, Rochelle. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you take it away.
Thank you. Well, good morning, and first and foremost, we really want to just thank the board for the proclamation and formally recognizing next week as Pretrial Probation and Parole Services Week. I'm Emily Hammond, the Assistant Chief Probation Officer at San Joaquin County Probation. I think I've met all of you. And first and foremost, we would not be the exceptional department that we are without all the men and women who, several are here in attendance today, that work in several different capacities within our department. And so I thought I'd just say a very few words. I won't make this long, and just give a few numbers about, that really kind of describe who we are. Because oftentimes, people go, probation? Oh yeah, you guys are parole. No, we're not parole. They have their own special niche in the community and they're very important. Oh, you guys are police. No, we're not police. Oh, you guys are, help with kids. Well, yeah, we do. We do all of those things. So, one of the things that we do that folks don't often realize is that whereas our wonderful partners at the Sheriff's Department have the adult jail, the Probation Department oversees our juvenile halls. So some folks are not aware that due to recent changes in legislation, we now house youth up to the age of 25. So we are no longer just juvenile hall. We are a youthful offender facility. With that said, we're very, very proud of the work that we do there. A few stats that I grabbed indicated that we currently have 18 of our youth that are actively enrolled in Delta College. Out of the folks that we have that attend school, which is everybody, we have a fairly captive audience. 98% of our students attended every single day. Out of the 10 youth that were eligible to graduate from high school, 10 have graduated, so we're 100% there. We have 10 youth in this last year that have obtained a ServSafe certificate. What does that mean? Well, what that means is while they're in custody, they can do the testing and get certification to be a certified food handler so that upon release, they can find a job in the food service industry. We have over 200 plus logistics certificates that were issued over this last year, and that is for things like learning forklift driving and warehousing. So again, upon release, our youth will be better served to assist in the community and provide in the community. Now, on the flip side of that, of course, you often see our probation officers out and about in the community. What do those folks do? Well, over the last year, our officers had a total of 9,792 field visits. Why do we not say home visits? Well, we all know the issues with homeless camps. Sometimes you'll find our staff hiking down to rivers to find their folks, knowing where their tent is set up so they can see them there. And of course, trying to get them out of those systems, but also making sure that we are constantly aware of even where our transient offenders are. We conducted 663 searches. What does that mean? Well, when the court gives us orders for somebody not to possess a certain item, it's important that we go and check and make sure that certain contraband, guns, drugs, sexual paraphernalia is not in those offenders' homes. And we have provided 1,979 hours of dosing programming, so offering programming for our offenders. We also, in the probation department, have our pretrial services, and our pretrial services staff, they conduct an assessment on every single person who is booked in our adult jail. Absent a few circumstances, they assess those individuals for their suitability to remain in custody or be released. So we do our part in assisting with the jail population. So with that, again, we're extremely grateful to our entire staff. We're extremely grateful to you, board, who have been nothing but supportive to us and the services that we conduct to make ourselves a stronger and safer community, and also a community that thrives on programming and making our offenders better than they were when they first came to us. So we thank you for your support. And with that, I have a few staff here who I'd like to give the opportunity just to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you again for proclaiming July 16th through the 21st, Probation, Parole, and Pretrial Services Week. We truly appreciate the support of the board. The Probation Department plays a vital but balanced role in law enforcement and the criminal justice system. Although our profession is ever-changing, as Ms. Hammonds spoke about, we know that our purpose is to support victims, provide supervision and services for offenders, and provide our clients with the opportunity to change. Also, in that process, to build a safer and healthier community.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Tabitha Harity. I'm a Senior Deputy Probation Officer with San Joaquin County. On behalf of myself and my fellow officers, I'd just like to say a huge thank you for the support you continue to give our department so that we can continue to serve our clients and the community effectively.
Morning. My name is Jeremy Wichlaz. I'm a pretrial specialist, San Joaquin County Probation Department. I'd like to thank the board for their support. Offer my gratitude to each and every one of you. As I understand that the county is constantly faced with difficulties with changing laws and budget constraints, trying to keep the sheriff's office and the jail moving forward. And my group of colleagues find it very important to do what we can to help the community, try and keep those that do not necessarily need to be incarcerated out of the jail.
All right, thank you all very much. And before I pipe in here, I'm going to turn it over to our board here. Let's start with our vice chair this time.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate everything you do for our community, making it safer, and I really like the list of services you provide. You guys do an amazing job, and I value your efforts in San Joaquin County. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Supervisor Canepa.
Just want to say thank you for what you guys do and putting your lives on the line of danger for us. I appreciate that. And I know there's clerical staff and a lot of different jobs that you do, but training folks so that they have a skill is very important to me, because if we could stop the recidivism and actually get them to be, crucial parts of society, I think that's the most important part of what you guys do. So thank you for what you do and how you do it. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Supervisor Canepa. Supervisor Ding.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you and understanding. I mean, you wear so many different hats. You're right. The view from the public is somewhat confused, but, especially after doing, Father's Appreciation, you're dealing with a lot of the situations where those elements aren't there. And understand that we appreciate all the hats you wear in your job. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ding. Supervisor Patty, you have a 1 minute time limit.
For the warm-up. Well, thank you all for being here, President, so we can give a little bit of recognition for the work that you do. And oftentimes you're working in autonomy, except for those that you interact with. And every single case, every client, every case file that you handle is a puzzle, is a pieces you need to put together. And how do we change that pathway that they're currently on? How do we transition them to a better trajectory in their own lives? And you all have an important role in that development, and we appreciate, celebrate, and applaud that effort every single day for every individual that you interact with and every person that you care so much about. So thank you for being part of San Joaquin County's excellence.
Thank you, Supervisor Patty, and I'll wrap it up. And thank you all here very, very much. And I look in the audience, I see some badges and some probation shirts. So if you're here from probation or in parole, can you guys please stand up for me? Well, thank you. Thank you all, and the men and women for the work that you do, and from holding folks who break the law accountable, like you said, the different searches and so on, and for helping or advocating for the victims of crimes too. And like our supervisor mentioned, you do wear so many hats. So we appreciate everything that you do. And thank you to the probation officers out there. I know I've called you in the middle of the night a couple of times, and you're picking up, and you're a plethora of information. So thank you for your professionalism. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you for caring about the folks here in San Joaquin County. And God bless each and every one of you. And, of course, the most important thing of all is to stay safe and make sure you make it home to your family each and every night. So, again, God bless. And if you could join me up here in front, and I'll have our supervisors come down. We'll take a quick picture. Yeah, if anybody wants to come down, by all means, please.
Everybody.
I guess you and I can work. Everyone, this is going to be like a roll-through video. All for being here. Thank you.
All right, there you go, in the house.
Yes.
All right, move on here to public comment and consent items. Now is the time for public comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors that are not listed on the agenda and minutes, consent calendar, and closed session items. We request that you fill out a comment form like some folks have done here. They're right in the back there. So if you'd like to speak, if you could fill that out, please. And of course, there is a time limit of 3 minutes for comments. So we will start with the public comment forms that I do have. Let's start with Melanie Knott.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you guys enjoyed your break and you're back and fresh and ready to take on our county business. Chairman Rickman, Board of Supervisors, my name is Melanie Knott and I'm a resident of San Joaquin County. As I approach this podium to speak and address this board, I realize that you may already know what I'm about to say and speak on, but I would still like your undivided attention. Since my first visit to this chamber, I've tried to learn from my experiences. I've witnessed constituents of this county speak out against regarding a dangerous road in their community that needed redress, and veterans within this county going without a nearby facility for services that they desperately needed. These constituents bravely and boldly spoke out and continued to speak out until their issue was corrected. Initially, my thoughts were, why do these people continue to speak out? And I'm sure many people say that of me today. Well, it was harm. It was an undesirable situation that drastically impacted their lives and the lives of the community. I didn't know or understand their harm, but through their consistent speaking out, I eventually did understand and was happy for the outcome of their situation. Persistence. Well, in regards to election transparency, the board may say, we have started the Citizens Election Advisory Committee to address this matter. Yes, you have, and I'm grateful and I thank you for all that. However, our county elections have been replaced by selections. In essence, they've been stolen and are unsecure. There is foreign interference. Voting computers and the software are vulnerable to hacking, and early and universal mail-in ballots disenfranchise legal and eligible voters. If I could, for just a moment, change gears to my understanding on the agenda today, item 18, the ROV wants to adopt a resolution electing not to list supporters and opponents for local measures on the county ballot in all future elections. What reasons would this resolution be for? Let me quote Thomas Jefferson. I know of no safe depositor of the ultimate powers of society, but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, freedom of choice, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses on constitutional power. I'll close with this. Thank you again for the Citizens Election Advisory Committee. Let's get rid of the computers and their software. Let's go back to implementing voter ID, return and paper ballots, and count our ballots by informed citizens, go back to one-day voting. We can do this. Thank you. God bless.
All right, thank you. Alex Alaferis.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Alex Olaferis. I'm a resident of San Joaquin County. It's concerning that the state of California, through AB 969, is trying to impose centralized control of the elections. This bill will basically take away your power to basically say, hey, we want to ban our computers and systems associated with the elections and go back to paper ballots, Amish, aka Amish voting. And that's not right. We've seen too much centralized control in the state of California. What about these decentralization? Counties. Can't counties make the decision? Why does the state of California come in and say, oh, because of Shasta County and their vote and how they said, no, we don't want these computer systems associated with the elections. We will go back to paper ballot voting. And so the state of California is going back. So I hope you guys oppose this bad bill. And by the way, there's a good documentary on Rumble. Don't find it on YouTube, it's censored. It's called Kill Chain. It's a documentary. Computer scientists, we're talking the top scientists, including university professors out of Pennsylvania and here in California, hacked into the three systems that are used across the nation. Dominion, used to be Diebold, EASS, and Heart machines. They're totally hackable, folks. There was one hacker from India that spoke on that documentary, and he said how it was very easy for him. He essentially went into the state of Alaska elections. He had everything. He could have altered everything. He could have altered the election results. He could have done anything he wanted. He got in, a person from India. And another one was saying how even foreign governments are doing this, like Russia. We got foreign hackers associated with foreign governments they've been hacking into our system, and they had a hackathon in Las Vegas, and they did this. Last but not least, Sound of Freedom. I urge everyone in this room to watch this movie. Child sex trafficking is a major issue in America. We should stop hiding about this issue. This is a true story of an agent that went down into Colombia and rescued kids that were sold into child sex trafficking in Colombia. And we have kids being sold in child sex trafficking in the United States. It's a huge problem. It's the #1 moneymaker for criminal enterprises. And then, ironic how CNN and the fake news media is trying to attack this movie. Shame on themselves. You all need to see it, including the sheriffs.
All right, thank you. Carla. And I'm going to try the last name. Every time I try, I've got it wrong, so. Trying Carla is a beautiful name. So.
Just say Hune then. It's good to see you all, Chairman Rickman and the rest of the members. It's been about 6 weeks since I've been here, so. Anyway, Alex kind of spoke about what I'm going to speak about. And I know, at the state level, there's not a lot you can do, but on AB 969, what the Secretary of State is trying to do is that, so basically what it is, it says bans manual counting for elections where there is more than 1,000 people registered to vote, and prevents voting systems contracts from being canceled unless there's a process underway to contract for a replacement system. And that's under her purview. And I will tell you right now, she is not going to approve anything but what she wants. So I was at a hearing a week ago Monday. The wonderful Secretary of State decided that on July 3rd, she would hold a public hearing, which she did not show up at. And we all get to speak about the resolutions that she's trying to put in place before this bill is banned. So I sent that all to you. You need to get a hold of Senator Eggman and talk to her that her vote needs to be no on this. It's in the Appropriations Committee, I believe, or the Finance Committee right now. So there are over 50 bills in the state of California on the election process trying to change it. And it's not for the good at all. And then also speaking, I saw The Sound of Freedom last night. It is very heavy, but it's very, very tastefully done. You will be in tears, but it's something that needs to be addressed and everybody needs to know what's going on. The United States is the #1 buyer of trafficked people. Mexico is the #1 seller of trafficked people. So we need to be aware of that because we're a huge quarter, obviously, since we border on Mexico and Canada. So there's a lot to go through. So anyway, thank you all for what you do. I appreciate you, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, that's all the public comment forms I have. Did anybody else wishing to speak to the board on items that are not on the agenda? No one. Bring it back to the board, and we will close out public comment, and we will go off to our minutes. And for approval of the Board of Supervisors regular meeting June 6, 2023, Board of Supervisors special meeting on June 20th, 2023. No corrections or?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Get a vote, please. Right, it's adopted and it passes 5-0. Meeting June 6th. All right, move on to consent items, items 1 through 42. Any members of the board wishing to pull any of the consent items?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull number 18 and 19.
19. Anyone else?
Chair, I'd like to do 3.4. And then I don't know if I need to call for a separate vote on 3.11 and 3.14.
So 4, 11, and 14. So you want to pull 11 and 14 for a separate vote?
Yes, please.
All right.
Chairman, I'll pull consent item number 2, along with number 13 and number 20.
All right, anyone else?
And I'm sorry, one more, 25.
All right, we will start at the lowest one. So that would be Supervisor Patty, number 2. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Is our airport director able to be at our meeting today? There he is, Ms. Sokol. Mr. Sokol. And actually, 1 and 2 were some new developments at the airport. I just wanted to take a moment as it relates to number 2 and applaud this board. We were patiently waiting for a new airport director as it sat on the table for about a year plus, but I want to compliment the board to the foresight and the trust that we had and appreciate our airport director for bringing this forward to a completion. This is a major step forward for our airport. In the last year alone, Burrell has secured not only land agreements, but development agreements on a lot of those lands that are quite significant. They are teed up and ready and anxious for us to deliver this today. It's on consent. And once we do that, I believe Burrell is going to spring into action and bring some significant opportunities for us to consider here at the San Joaquin Airport. Director Sokol, I'd like to just turn it over to you. Appreciate the effort you took. I know you took a deep dive. This was on your plate the moment you were brought in as airport director, but thank you for bringing this to the finish line. And also on number 1, you want to change the consent item. You wanted to change the name to NorCal Air Logistics Center. Give us a little overview on some of the action you have going on at the airport.
Well, regarding the name change, it is just for a portion of the airport. It's our effort to communicate to potential investors that our airport serves a regional clientele, not just a local or county clientele. We want to be an air logistics center that serves the entire Northern California region. That's the basis for that change. It's just to relay that to potential investors. Regarding the Burrell lease, the Burrell lease is something that is a little bit of speculation because it's not a specific lease, but it's a very exciting opportunity, which I think is going to provide significant dividends in the short run for our airport. Burrell has got very, very strong aviation industry contacts throughout the country and developing those relationships throughout the world, actually. I'm hoping that their marketing strength is going to bring new opportunities to our airport.
Excellent. Thank you. And again, I want to compliment this board on the foresight to trust not only our director, but the opportunity when opportunity comes knocking on a door, as nobody has knocked on our door at the airport for quite a while, that we've taken a leap of faith and brought this to the finish line. So thank you. Well done, sir. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on item number 2? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, which was Supervisor Canepa.
So I was just curious, the amount of money, I mean, it's very rare that government actually gives back money. So it's part of the portion of the funds. What happens with the other amount? There's like 1.9 million that's getting divvied out.
Supervisor Canepa, I could speak to this because this got commissioned when I was auditor controller some 6 or 8 years ago, but I'm going to turn it over to our auditor controller and our internal audit division chief to be able to explain what happened here, and I'll be available for answering any other questions you might have.
Okay. So, I mean, basically it was money that's not being used and then found the funds. But it's
good morning, Board. Jeff Wolkamp, County Auditor Controller. I have with me Chief Deputy Jan McCutcheon. But yes, it is money that our office, a few years back, we conducted an audit of just going out and looking at funds that were dormant, monies that were just sitting there and nothing was happening to those. We wanted to identify what was the purpose of those. Should we keep these? What should we do with these? And as we went through this process, this item today, we identified this as an item that appeared to be dormant. We got in touch with Public Works, and I believe it was a few years back. Jan probably knows a little bit more details, so please jump in and correct me if I get this wrong. But we identified these funds as dormant. We went to Public Works. There was reason at the time to leave them. There was they believed that there was a project on the horizon that they were working with the city of Stockton. Well, since that point in time, it's been determined that no, that won't go through. These funds are no longer needed. So we will make an attempt to return them to the parcel owners who initially paid the assessments.
Okay, and the same thing, so there's $4 million that you guys found, or close to that, so this is half of the amount?
That's correct.
Okay, so then when you go, so how do you get it back to the people? So I mean, it was that one little section of, right, so each one is a different section that has the money in it?
I'll let
trying to
Jen.
understand this, so sorry, I mean.
So please.
So
Your
you're
question?
giving back the 1.9 million. So how do you go about, I mean, so this bond was a long time ago. So then when people sell their houses, and so how do you go about giving the money back is the question.
That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, we've determined as many addresses as possible for the taxpayers of record for the tax year of 2004 through 2005. So we are going to, and then we went to done special things to try to find where they would be if they're not still at that address. So we're making every effort to find the addresses for those people that paid the bill in 2004, 2005. We are sending them by direct mail and doing everything we can to find out what their current address is if they're no longer at that particular residence. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. No, I'm just glad to be a part of this because I've never heard of government giving back money. You know what I mean? Usually there's somewhere, some way they find to spend it. And you even increase the amount of the money, so you've multiplied it, you know, since you guys have held it. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I thought that was something that needed to be shared, that, hey, we're actually giving money back and with interest, you know, accrued. So I appreciate it.
And we'll also be posting notices publicly on our website and probably through, I mean, it used to be through outlets like the Stockton Record, but we'll make a public notice out there that that taxpayers have up to a year to make a claim if they've moved, because it's realistically we're not going to be able to identify everyone because, like you say, a lot of people have relocated and moved since then, and sometimes you lose the chain of following them and tracking them down. But we will leave the period open for about a year for them to file a claim. And after that point, we will then, the money will be returned to the general fund.
Okay. Thank you for your diligence. Appreciate it.
Anyone else from the board? None? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Go on to item number 11, which was pulled by Supervisor Canepa. And we are going to pull this for a separate vote, so just for the record.
Good morning. So my little peanut brain got to thinking, and I'm thinking, okay, we have surplus property, and on 314, we're renting Railroad Square. So my little peanut brain got to thinking, and I'm thinking, why are we selling office space that we own and renting an older building that's down the block that's probably not as good as the one we're selling? So if you take the rent over the life of the Railroad Square, you already own the building. You could charge rent to, you know, whoever's in Railroad Square, we win. It's below market value, and that was one of the questions I was curious about on the 3-point, on the 11, is what was the offer before this one? So you kind of, I guess that's like 4 questions right there. Did you get where I was coming from?
Yes. So there are plans in the future for Railroad Square tenants to be moving to another location from a long-term perspective, so that was a great question. The offer before this offer was 2.2, so this is actually a higher offer than we last received.
And you're correct. We prefer not to be leasing buildings when we don't need to be leasing buildings, but from the perspective of, like I said, Railroad Square, there are plans in the future for moving those tenants. It's a below market rate that we get that lease for, so economically it is a good value for us. And in this case, it is the California building that we're selling is something that had been a long-term plan. It originally was a state building. In selling the buildings, a portion of those funds will go to healthcare services, or HSA, Health Services Agency.
Child support.
Child support, I'm sorry, to child support. That was part of the deal. The state said that when we sold the building that the funds go back into child support for them to reinvest in either where they're currently located or in their services that they're currently providing.
Okay, so what's the state of that building? So the lease, and can I talk about 14 or no? Or what am I?
Yeah, that's fine.
So then how long is the lease at Railroad Square? I mean, so obviously if you're talking about getting those folks, I get it, but I'm just saying I think it was 90,000 or I don't know what the cost per year for that rent is. But I mean, if you take that and move into that building over, I think it was a 10-year with the 2 additional 5s or something like that. So if you're signing a 10-year, you're stuck there for 10 years. It's that good of a deal?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Good, yeah.
It's a 5-year lease with the 2 options. We don't have to exercise those options.
Okay.
And as Marcia indicated, the 826 North California Street was purchased with state dollars for child support, Department of Child Support Services in, I believe, 89 or 90, and they moved in shortly thereafter and had been in that location for all of that time. The county, while the county is the fee owner, we did not purchase it with county dollars. Therefore, when it is sold, we don't have the option to, I guess we could have purchased it from the state for the purpose that you're stating, but the square footage of 826 North California is just shy of 40,000 square feet, where the space that we're renting at Railroad Square for HSA and behavioral health is in excess of 83,000. So that wouldn't meet the need to move. We'd have to move part of them over to 826 North California.
Okay. So that's the hard part, because we're always looking for places to put people.
Agreed.
And you have a perfectly good place. So the state of California bought it, and that's the problem. So we don't theoretically own it. So they're saying you sell this, you have to put this money back into.
Hold it for specifically for facilities costs related to Department of Child Support Services, who are also in a leased space right now.
Okay, so does any of that get any better? So where are those people, obviously, from Railroad Square and the Child Support Division?
Right now, I'm sorry, so the child support...
I'm sorry to get into the minutia of it, but it just seems crazy that we're selling something that we could possibly use, but now you said that there's other sides to it, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And the SJ Sarah thing, I mean, if we could have flopped them somewhere and say, bought that building, so I mean, is it worth it to buy it? I mean, I'm all for Visionary Homes buying it, but I mean, I'm also thinking, you know what I mean, have we thought this through enough to where, you know what I mean, do you buy that?
We have had discussions about whether or not the county could find an appropriate use for that property. To be quite honest, I personally spent 12 years of my county career working in that building. And it leaves a lot to be desired. It would need an awful lot of work, in my estimation, to bring it to county standards. Hence the reason child support moved out of that property when Mr. Mendoza took over. And I believe Ms. Cruz was wanting to do that as well. Actually, I think she's the one that did it. I take that back. She's the one that did that because it's a rough neighborhood, and the building leaves a lot to be desired as far as an adequate office space.
That was kind of my concerns at Railroad Square too, because that's very old, and there's issues with that too. So I'm thinking it's a
Agreed.
5-year lease then, so that I just want to be able to sleep at night knowing that I thought of this and that we're giving all due diligence and
Yes.
making sure that we're not. I thought it was a 10-year, because if you take that money times 10, you could have bought that building like 4 times over. So okay.
And if you look at the bigger picture, and later on during this board meeting, we'll be presenting the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years. If it was as easy as only having maybe 5 buildings we have to deal with in this county, but it's been over a decade since we have been building buildings. We're making significant progress on 9 buildings that will be coming up over the next several years. It's really strategic. What's older, what's more critical from a constituent perspective in providing other services and efficiency, and we can only pick away at the list so fast. So there is a lot of thought that goes into it, and that's why quite often you'll see us bring multiple recommendations, because as we move forward, other opportunities become available. So we don't take any of this lightly, and there is a lot of thought and strategic planning that goes into what we're doing for building, what we're doing to move forward with providing what everyone needs.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to, because I saw the appraised value is $4 million, and I'm thinking, so then the first one was 2.2 million. So
Yeah.
I get it, you know what I mean? So it's better to have a county building with, you know what I mean, where we get to charge the rent to the department, and then it comes back to the county, so that your return on investment comes back to us. If we're paying rent goes bye-bye, you know what I mean, for a substandard building. That's the Sears and Roebuck building's been there for, I don't know how many years, that I'm sure is not the most desirable place to work in also. So, those are my concerns. So anyway, thank you.
Agreed. And from general services perspective, if I could wave a magic wand and no county operation was in a leased facility, I would do that tomorrow. But because it puts us at a disadvantage sometimes, depending on the property and who the property owner is. And I much prefer county operations to be in county-owned facilities. But like Ms. Cunningham said, we haven't built anything for over a decade, and we're back on track, and it's going to take us a little while to right the ship, but that's my goal. I don't know if everybody agrees with my goal, but that's my goal, is to get as much out of leased facilities as possible.
Well, that's for me. It's just being mindful of taxpayers' dollars. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
wherever we could save or parlay it, or, you know what I mean, or do something creative outside the box. I was just thinking, and it's just hard because we don't have a lot of time to look at this stuff. So there's a lot of trust that we instill upon you folks. You know what I mean? So I just had to bring it up. My squirrel brain was going, and it's like, oh my goodness, that doesn't make sense. But it does make sense now. So thank you.
And if I could just jump in, Supervisor Canepa, through the chair, as Ms. Cunningham was saying, the Railroad Square occupants are a part of a long-term strategic plan, and it's not something that we've overlooked, or it's not something we've considered that heavily. And it's too early to start talking about those things in detail, but they are absolutely something that's been right in the tip of our brain as we've been moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Anybody else from the board? Seeing none. All right, we're going to move to item number 14 since this has been discussed briefly. So that was Supervisor Canepa.
Those questions pretty much were answered. That was just my concern. You know what I mean? That I thought it was of 10 with 2 5s, but it's a 5 with 2 more 5s. Okay.
It's a 5 with, I don't want to say the wrong.
Sorry,
It's okay.
It's all.
It's a 5-year term.
It turns into kind of Chinese when you're reading 1,800 pages.
There's an out. With the 5-year extension.
2 5-year, 1 5-year extension? I don't recall, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
No.
I better get this
It's a
right.
5-year with 2 additional 5-year options. So it can be as long as 15 years.
Okay.
If
Those
we
are
choose,
options.
those are options.
Those are our option to choose yes or no after the 5 years.
So there's more coming soon, obviously, to deal with that, and then that'll be decided then after the 5 years or up to the 5 years. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, thank you, and thank you both. Appreciate it. On to item number 13, which is Supervisor Patty's.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, is our sheriff still present? I was going to ask him to come forward and discuss number 13. Along with general services. Don't leave.
We're not.
Morning.
Morning, Sheriff. I just pulled this for a quick review on perhaps the vision, utility, short and long term of what used to be known as the Honor Farm, and I believe we have plans for that area as well. Can you maybe give us if there's any change or amendment and how you've incorporated a lot of great changes over in your department? So I just wanted to kind of get an update of what your utility and vision is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, this doesn't really affect that. This is barracks that have been used for a long time as this day reporting center. It's right up front there by our alternative work program, so it works out pretty well there. Clearly, we have the program out there that we're helping inmates transition. We have a nonprofit in JKNL barracks that uses that as a transition for inmates out to the streets, helping them find job and training and things like that. That's run by a nonprofit. And we're just getting ready, I think in a matter of weeks or months, a month or 2 weeks, to break ground on the new jail finally, the SB 1022 project that's been going on for 10 years or so, thanks to the state dragging their feet and COVID and everything like that. But so eventually, once that's finished, and we're thinking like a year and a half to get that up, maybe.
SB 1022, we're looking probably 2 years.
2 years to get that open and ready to go. And that's when some of those other barracks are all going to become vacant, because we're going to move all those bodies except the bodies from what we call the 124, which is one of the newer buildings that sits out kind of next to the barracks. We're going to keep that, probably have to keep that open for inmates that work on the grounds and in our distribution center and throughout our facility to help keep that running. But all those other barracks are going to fall vacant, which is D, E, and F. Barracks. So we're going to have to talk about that a lot, because if we allow that to go vacant, then the moment we do that, I believe by law they would have to be upgraded to all the current standards. That's just a tremendous amount of cost. But we've talked about things as far as storing large bulk type evidence and things like that, and some of they're just big from the 40s and 50s cinder block buildings that have swamp coolers in them, and so they're just basically big ovens, or what they are. And so we may be able to use them as far as storage or training facilities or something like that. But as far as having other humans occupy them, I think it would just be too costly to try and transition them to that. So I think to continue to use A, B, and C, I think that's what this one addresses, is fantastic. It works out really well to have it out there, and the other buildings, we'll have to see what we'll be able to do with them after the couple years it'll take us to get SB 1020.
Understood. And the next question was, as you brought up A, B, and C, do you need any additional resources to utilize them to their full capacity and upgrade?
It's really not us running it. So that would be their responsibility if they needed to upgrade. They did a lot when they came in, and that was many years ago. I don't know if they'd be willing to or needed to upgrade anything else over there as a day reporting center type thing, but that would be on their ticket, not ours.
And that's being run, a daily reporting center is being run outside of your office?
That's correct.
It's a separate agency of the state?
Yep.
It's a nonprofit.
Nonprofit running it, that we subcontract out to?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
We lease the sheriff's property. I wanted to also take this opportunity to correct myself. The sheriff was right. SB 1022 is, the completion is in about 18 months. The projected completion, not 2 years. The end of 2024.
I'd like to reiterate that the sheriff was right for once.
Yes, he was.
I think for the record, the sheriff's always right. All right, thank you, Sheriff. I just want to get a little update on utility vision and what was going on out there. And I know general services, you guys are all, integrated and very responsive. So just wanted to get that update and have a public discussion. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, Sheriff. All right, that was item 13. We'll move on to item 18, which is Supervisor Ding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning to the board.
This one bothers me.
Which one? Okay.
Well, number 18, while you're sitting there. For those of you that probably don't read a ballot for like 2 months prior to going to the polling places, a lot of times you get there and you've got all these ballot measures. And maybe I'm unique, but most of them I still, even reading the language, don't understand what the heck they mean. And so I look at the supporters and the opponents. And, guilt by association, or, this is supported by the League of Steve Ding supporters, so it's a good thing. League of Women Vipers, bad thing, whatever your inclination is. I guess I don't understand why we would want to eliminate that information from the ballot. I would think that would confuse more voters than it would help.
So on May 23rd, when we came to the board with the AB 1416, that's what this is about. This is the one where we agreed that we wanted to opt out. We had a discussion and we all agreed to that. This is just the board order, you signing off to the decision that was made on May 23rd.
I don't remember making that decision to eliminate proponents and opponents of ballot measures.
It's not eliminating it. There was legislation that passed, AB 1416, that now requires us to add this additional language to the ballot, and it's going to be listed for state propositions, and we have the option to opt out of printing that new information for the local measures. So that's what this is about.
Okay, I don't want to opt out of printing. Make this clear to me. What action do I need? This is my concern, is our job is to make sure that we have transparent elections. Our job is to make sure people actually want to vote. And by eliminating information from the ballot, I think most people, when they look at some of these ballot measures, the water bond of 2019, whatever, it's one of their deciding factors is who's supporting it, who's opposing it, because most of us are raising families and working, and we don't have time to sit there and read all the way through this. My understanding is what this does is it eliminates printing on that ballot who supports it, who opposes it, so you're left to your own to read the 500 pages of the ballot initiative yourself if you so choose. Am I correct in that?
You would still receive a voter guide with that information listed just like we currently do. So nothing would change from our current practice. We just would not be including the new legislation that passed that required it for state measures. So there's 125 characters required for each. And if you remember back May 23rd, I originally was like, well, we should just put it on there because it's transparent to the voters. But then we had the discussion that adding that additional language, and I believe there was a conversation with yourself and Supervisor Patty, and the three of us actually agreed that it could set us up because now the burden would be on me to determine who is a supporter and who is a proponent, and do they meet the certain criteria, and so it could set us up for litigation. And so I think we agreed in that meeting that we would opt out of it.
What have we always done? I mean, you said us that we've never been sued before.
We've never included it before.
What's the guidelines right now? Is it 3 supporters, 3 opponents? I mean, there's got to be some type of a guide. And if I did say that, I apologize, because I disagree with my opinions in May.
No worries.
My opinions this month. I just think the transparency is good, but I think you're making this a little too complicated. How many opponents, proponents, what's the process been in the past? Because that's never been a problem in the past.
So when they file a measure, nothing's changed with that process. We're just talking about that little blurb that gets printed on the ballot where they choose yes or no. We'd be adding a little language there that would include, oh, these are the proponents, these are the folks that are opposing or supporting it, and that's it.
And has that been there in the past or not?
Nope, it's never been there. There was state legislation that was passed.
Thank you. Okay, that's the clarification I needed.
My apologies if I wasn't clear.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We do have a public comment for this item from Mr. Alaferis. Remember,
my name is Alex Olaferis. Yeah, I'm good.
Alaferis, you still have 3 minutes, right?
What?
The time limit is still 3 minutes.
Right.
All right.
So, having a list of supporters, opponents on local ballot measures, whether it's cities, school districts, special districts, county, is crucial. And after listening to this, okay, because I thought, in my opinion, you're going to totally eliminate the supporters and the opponents to a particular ballot measure, and so forth, because it is a crucial piece of information. And I hate to say it, if people had read their ballots in 2014 and really dug into Prop 47 and what we know today with the rising crime rates in California on all levels, I think people would never have voted for Prop 47. This out of control crime rates where we're dealing with, and the store thefts that are just burning businesses. One business down in somewhere in Stockton, they've shut down, citing store thefts. So yeah, that's all I just wanted to say. I'm glad that it's still going to be, because I've written ballot measures in the past for local tax issues, and it is a crucial piece of information for voters that do actually read the pamphlet. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the audience? And now bring it back to the board here. Supervisor Canepa.
I just have one question. So how does that information, so it's never been on the actual ballot itself, so this is something new by the state, right?
Correct.
So then the other thing that I always wondered is you could sway people, because how do those people, if somebody's not for or against, then all you would see is the for, you know what I mean? So how do they get, who decides to bring the information to you for and against that you put on the pamphlet?
So they have to file. There's a period of time after measures are filed where they can submit arguments and rebuttals. And so if those are submitted in a timely manner and appropriate, we print them exactly how they were furbished to our office. So those are provided to our office during that time period. We do nothing. If somebody submits something, it's our duty to make sure whatever was submitted is printed.
Okay, because I do remember some of that discussion. But I mean, then it's better that way not having it, because if somebody does present something, then theirs could sway a voter actually when they're voting.
It could, if it depends on who's listed. So I think and that would be a determination, because there's also requirements like what makes you a supporter, and do you meet the criteria that's laid out in this code that the state has put forward. And so that's the other piece to it, is who's responsible for that. That becomes us and becomes the county that has to decide that. And I think that in the voter guide, all of the information, whether you're supporting or opposing something is listed in the voter information guide, and that's where all of that information has always lived. This would add an extra 125 characters, so it'd be 250 characters to our ballots. So every single measure, we'd be adding more real estate, potentially creating a additional ballot card as well, when the information is already listed in the voter information guide.
And then the cost to the candidate too, who pays for the printing.
Goes up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, good.
Thank you.
I think the next one's me too, so.
All right, well, Supervisor Ding has item number 19.
I just want to, what I'm trying to do is, before smoke becomes fire, I'm just trying to make sure these questions are, my understanding is that was just a technical error that was being corrected, or a clerical error, and exactly what was that clerical error?
So in Minute Track, when we internally get everything ready to go before we upload it into Minute Track, we work with council and with CAO's office, and so
No, the language. It was just on numbers of appointments.
it was just the 3 landowner districts were like cut off, and they weren't listed on there, and they should have been.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good
All
day.
right, thank you. Move on to item number 20, which is Supervisor Patty.
Thank you, Chairman. Through the chair, I think maybe perhaps our Behavioral Health Director coming down. I had a brief question just to review. I had a couple calls on this and concerns. We had what looks to be 16 locations with 72 different people that were currently under care at the supportive housing project, and there was a bankruptcy filed, and the vendor, let's see, where's my computer has jumped to a different location. Here we go. I think I can't find it in front of me. Anyways, the vendor that was there has filed bankruptcy, and they're no longer going to participate. So the concern we had, sorry? It's okay. Just the question I have is that the residents that we have that are currently under care, 72 of them at 16 locations, is there continuity in their housing? That's the big question. 2 or 3 people have called me and asked me about that. There was a concern that they would be out and without housing or shelter while we restructured.
Chair, through you to Supervisor Patty, Genevieve Valentine, Behavioral Health Director. Yes, there will be continuity of care. In fact, we started this process that you guys approved in May, a contract where GLOM could actually take over those homes immediately with partnerships with CivLic in order for all 16 homes to be put into place. So yes, there's continuity of care. In addition to that, we asked the providers to have staffing there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rather than a house leader, which was there previously just during business hours, and then a check-in at night. So we will actually be able to have full clinical coverage 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, to make sure there is no decompensation as well. So
this is ultimately a dramatic and perhaps improved shift on the services engagement and the supportive housing that the clients, the tenants would be needing.
Yes, sir. And our hope is there was actually vacancies prior to. So the 72 current residents will stay consistent with the hope of actually increasing to over 110.
Excellent. And then lastly, off the cuff, do you know how many beds and how much housing we are providing for clients that go through your department in countywide?
Oh my, no, not off the top of my head, but I can get that for you. It's a rather large amount though.
Several hundred perhaps?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you just, again, this is very informative.
Throughout the county, it would be well over 400.
Over 400, okay.
With apartments and different facilities that we have services with, and that's just within the county and then external as well.
And we've got more under development.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So thank you. Again, this is just transparency, a couple of concerns, and I think we should note an improvement of services that will be rendered. So good job on your behalf, and just want to bring it to the attention for a little bit of public clarity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chairman, that's all. Thanks.
And thank you. I don't see anybody else, so we'll move on to item number 25. And that was you, Supervisor Patty.
Thank you. Item number 25, this is a retroactively approved agreement with Fresno Regional Workforce Development and accept funding to support the creation of structured pathways to state-approved apprentice programs for the periods of June 26, 2023 through January 31 of 2026, with the total amount of $1.3 million. Through the chair, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Chairman Rickman, board members. We
are still morning. Just give me a little briefing. I know we've had some recent meetings. Myself and Supervisor Ding have engaged, and we're looking at enhancing vocational education and programs that we have right here in San Joaquin County. So looking down the road, can you give us a little snapshot of how this Fresno project or program came into our county and how that partnership is working out, and how we might be able to accentuate and enhance that, perhaps if we were to have a more robust level of vocational education here in San Joaquin County?
Absolutely. So this program started through SB1 funding. Originally, we got money, Fresno applied and received for the region money through SB1 to do these pre-apprenticeship programs. And included the whole region. San Joaquin County received part of that funding to do these apprenticeship programs. That money ended, and Fresno was applied and received additional funding, and we're part of that as well. So it's a continuation of what we started with SB1, doing pre-apprenticeship programming in the Valley. So with this funding, we will be doing 7 cohorts of 15 individuals per cohort. And so it prepares residents to go into the building trades. So it is in partnership with the building trades, something we've been working on for years and continue to do. So it is, but it's definitely something that, through the conversations that we've had with your office and many other partners, something that we want to consider moving forward. How can we bring in more partnerships to be able to continue to do that, not just for 15 at a time, but at a bigger scale to be able to meet the demands of the workforce?
So question of the 7 cohorts of 15 people, where will their training be and what are they exposed to? And by the way, I know last year, I believe it was last year, that there was a graduation. It was the first class graduating through, which was a high level of success. And if I remember correctly, many of the graduates were not able to be there because they were employed.
Correct.
Out and already working.
Correct. So the building trades does the training. So it is done through the building trades. They provide the MC3 curriculum and get them. And so it's exposure to all of the trades. Once they have completed that training, they then have to take the entrance tests to get into the unions and get picked up by the unions. So we have found, especially in San Joaquin County, and which is why Fresno has been so successful. All of our cohorts graduate, they graduate, and they are able to be employed. Not all for union. There's a lot of other opportunities. Just the fact that they go through this training gets them prepared for employment.
And where are they? And by the way, that was my next lead-in question, to celebrate the candidates that are going through the program, the students, and their graduation rate is 100%. That's fantastic. Where are they doing the MC3 training?
The building trades is doing it. It was being done at the Human Services Agency, and it's been moved to one of the union offices.
And local?
Local. It is done. It is local, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I wanted to just bring this to our attention for the board to be aware of the importance that we have for workforce development, training, education, construction trades, et cetera. And it's making a profound difference for many people's lives. And I'm glad that, and now, if I remember correctly, the Fresno project, this program, it's for the Central Valley. So correct. San Joaquin Valley, it's not Fresno Limited, and they're not
That is correct. They took the lead, as we often do in our region. One of the local areas will take the lead. Currently, we are, San Joaquin is taking the lead in the prison to employment, which is one of the other items that was brought before you. So Fresno has taken the lead on doing this, this programming.
Excellent. Well, since you brought it up, would you like to share the prison to employment program and what that encompasses?
Sure, absolutely. So we received, I don't believe it was in this, this item, I think it was the time before, but we received funding for the region to be able to provide training and services to justice-involved prison to employment individuals. We took the lead, which means we are the administrators, and each area had a certain portion of the $3 million that we received to be able to do that programming.
That program is done post-incarceration?
Yes. Yes. So once they exit, they come to us. We help them either with training or employment.
We have enough training opportunities.
We do. We do. So the funding does provide money for training, but also opportunities for wraparound services.
Excellent. Well, thank you. These are victory laps when we see that there's efforts being taken to reduce recidivism and enhance and increase career pathways. So I wanted to bring that forward and have a discussion and share some of the great accomplishments. So very well done. Thank you. It's a great partnership. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you. All right, that wraps up all the consent items I would pull. Since we did pull out a bunch of consent, I'm going to open up to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to comment on consent? All right, so now we'll bring it back to the board. So what we'll do, you still want a separate vote on 11 and 14? All right, we'll go ahead. So per Supervisor Canepa, he's not requesting a separate vote on items 11 and 14, so we can include that with a regular motion that I will ask the board to make.
Second.
Motion approved, Chair.
We have a motion and a second. Have a vote, please. All right, it is adopted or it passed 5-0. Counselor, we have a closed session that says up next. Do we have any outside counsel waiting?
Yes, we have somebody coming in at 11.
At 11?
Yeah.
All right, we will continue then. It is only 10:40, so we will continue and see if we can get some stuff out of the way before we break. So we'll go on to discussion item number 1, introduce and waive reading of an ordinance amending Title 11, Division 2, 11-2101 and 11-2102 of the Ordinance Code of the County of San Joaquin pertaining to the general provision of the Aviation Advisory Committee. Said ordinance to be adopted on August 8, 2023. There he is. Our airport director, Sokol. Welcome. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
The Aviation Advisory Committee, I met them the first time in February, had expressed a concern to me that there was an interpretation of this ordinance that was preventing them from being able to review public documents that I thought were valuable and important to them in providing you with the policy recommendations and advice that the existence of the committee is there for. So I suggested some changes to the ordinance language, discussed it with the Aviation Committee, shared it with Matt Dacey of the County Counsel's Office, came up with some modest adjustments, I think, to the language of the ordinance that would address the concerns of the County Council and allow the Airport Department to share public reports, financial information with the members of the Aviation Committee so they can use that information in providing informed recommendations to you.
All right. Short and sweet. Bring it back to the board. Supervisor Patty.
Thank you, Chairman. Having sat on the advisory committee for the past 5-6 years, I think it's a fantastic amendment. I know that the advisory committee is a volunteer group that we oftentimes, many of us make appointments or suggestions, and their engagement is helpful as a sounding block, perhaps for our director, just to run ideas through and get some positive feedback and some community engagement. So I think this is a necessary amendment, and I appreciate the director bringing it forward.
Point out to you that certainly having a committee, you have to have an effective committee, a committee that feels like it's contributing. And the impression I got when I first arrived was this existing language and the prohibitions that were in place was kind of cutting the committee off at its knees, and with some very modest modifications, I think we've addressed that.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Canepa.
I was just wondering, is there other committees that have the same problem, or is it just this one? And when was this written in? And so this has been there a while?
As far as I know, it's unique to the Aviation Committee. I don't think there's any other committee that's got language that's
written. So you couldn't share budgetary information or anything like that, or?
Well,
I mean, is that
what I encountered when I arrived in February was I wanted to share information with the Aviation Committee. I was told by my staff that the county council had previously determined that information couldn't be shared because of the way the ordinance was written. To my knowledge, it's the only ordinance written this way. So with these adjustments, we'll be able to share public information and alleviate that concern.
I mean, somebody theoretically could ask for a public records request and find it out anyway, right?
As far as I know, yes.
So, I mean, it's moot. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Canepa. And when we're talking about budget in and of itself, we're talking about budget that has to do with aviation, the airport, not the entire county budget, because that is on our website and so on and agendized.
Well, I don't think it's budget as much as it is reports, internal reports, for example, of revenue for the month or traffic. There's a holdup in providing that information to the committee, which it seemed was inappropriate to me.
Okay, but along as the information that you're requesting or to change the ordinance relates to the committee assignment, not
of course,
a plethora of everything.
Of course, just aviation. This is the whole focus is on aviation.
All right, just to make sure they're not going beyond the scope of what their assignments are.
Absolutely, and then there's language in the ordinance to protect from the Aviation Committee trying to grab authority or take positions that would supersede the Board of Supervisors. We're trying to make it very, very clear that that's not going to happen. That won't be allowed.
Right, and they are just an advisory committee, not a policy-making committee, and
exactly.
That is clearly in the ordinance. And
exactly, we maintain and I think strengthen that by saying, you're here to provide recommendations and advice, but not to make policy, and not really to direct any airport operations.
All right, great. I mean, no, that's great because, hey, we're the policy makers up here. Last thing we need is other folks making policy that are at our odds with this board. So,
and that's the fine line. I think that was a little bit over the edge, and that's what the fine line we've tried to adjust and correct.
All right, cool. All right. I don't see anybody in the queue, so I'll open up for the public comment, or open up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to address the board on this item? Looks like we have all our staff here, so I would say no. I'll bring it back to the board. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Get a motion and a second. Get a vote, please. It is adopted 4-0 with Supervisor Dean being absent. Move on to item number 2, and this is from Supervisor Patty's office. Discussion on using county resources to explore the possibility of a joint partnership with the City of Stockton regarding City Animal Shelter Facility renovation project. And I will turn that over to Supervisor Patty.
Thank you, Chairman. Just real briefly, I'd like to ask Ms. Cunningham from General Services to come on down. Recently, the board had approved a shelter improvement matching the city and so basically a public-private partnership with local nonprofit efforts for dog runway and shaded area for facility improvement. In talking with the city about that shelter, their future, the plans, the needs we have in San Joaquin County, I was made aware of a potential new shelter plan in a couple of the different possibilities that may or may not include San Joaquin County for the future and our needs for shelter. And so at that point, I contacted Director Cunningham, and we've had some brief conversations, but Director Cunningham may have some recommendations and like to advise the board.
So there has been conversations, and currently the sheriff has an agreement with the city of Stockton where they provide their animal shelter for the unincorporated areas. One of the biggest needs at the city Stockton shelter is they need additional kennel space. So that's one of the concerns that we shared with the city, and they recently added an additional 22 kennels to the original expansion that they're looking at doing. From a short-term perspective, we definitely need to be continuing our agreement with the city. Long-term, and when I say long-terms, I'm talking about we're going to be working with the sheriff department to look at a 10-year master plan of what some of their needs are in the future. One of them is animal shelter, and I know the sheriff's also is looking at other opportunities, but right now they're slim. And whatever we can do to embrace and expand the kennel space, and as long as it would be written in a win-win situation, which the city is very open to doing with the county. We have a great working relationship. The sheriff does with the police department that runs the animal shelter for the city right now. It's worth us taking the time to do the research, look at what we could do from an agreement perspective and what we're currently paying, and possibly develop this partnership so that these additional services could be made available to this county as well.
And Director Cunningham, just to be clear, we're not approving a project. We're opening up the possibility for you to move forward, or actually just the board is allowing or permitting or endorsing your going forward with the city to engage in conversation and bring back to the board something to consider. Correct.
And the sheriff's staff would also be involved in this with me that currently oversee the animal shelter portion.
Understood. Understood. Thank you. And Chairman, I think that's a brief overview of what we need to do moving forward. And I appreciate the diligence that Director Cunningham has put in, as always, highly engaged. And it's, I think, a win-win, as Director Cunningham identified, for the county to engage and explore this possibility. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Canepa.
I just have one question. So if we do a county facility down the road, it's obviously not going to be able to be using ARPA funds, right, to help pay for it.
Well, I know the city's using ARPA fund. That would be up to the county administrator's department to decide if we're going to contribute funds, where those funds would come from.
No, my question was just whatever we're going to do at the counties, not for years down the line where ARPA funds need to be spent within a certain timeline, right?
Yes.
So if you don't
correct
your ARPA funds on something now, then you have
Sorry,
to.
I misunderstood you. Yes.
That was just my question, because
yeah, we have till December of 2026 to spend ARPA funds.
Okay. So this would just be a
one-time
partnership of going forward and finding out what possibly could be, because I mean the shelter is obviously at capacity all the time. So I mean 22 kennels isn't going to help much there, because they're always at capacity and having to put animals down.
Right, that was an additional 22 to the original expansion, and I don't recall what the full number was. I know we were looking at trying, we told them that one of the important parts for San Joaquin County would be that they increase that capacity and eliminated. Right now, a lot of animals get turned away, both from the city and the county's perspective when it comes to having to put them in the shelter. The other thing that we would look closely at is the agreement we have right now and make sure if we're looking at from a 10-year perspective that we're not necessarily, we would want to outclause, I guess is what I'm saying. So we would look at some of the things in our current agreement that we would write so that it would be effective for us both short-term and long-term, regardless of where we end up going in the future, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. I'll open up for public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board on this item? And I bring it back to the board, and I have just a few comments. And I agree. I would like to see the sheriff's agreement or the MOU on that and what services we are providing and the costs. If we are going to provide some type of financial partnership with the city, then I think that needs to be looked at because we're paying per animal, if that's correct. So if we're going to be giving money, should we continue to pay for one, or are we going to get some kind of discount or whatever it may be? So I think there's a lot of things that need to be looked at least for me. But I'm cool with going forward on that. Supervisor Canepa.
That was the dollar amount was $1.2 million annually. It was like $400 per animal that someone, either law enforcement or county resident, brings. That's the cost.
And with that money, I would be interested to see what percentage of those animals in that kennel is from the county. So
we will look at all those numbers.
All right. Thank you. I didn't see you writing anything down. I was joking.
It was already on the list to look into.
Gave you a bad time. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
We'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Let's have a vote. All right, it's adopted 5-0. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is Supervisor Patty. So reconsider April 11th, 2023, direction related to receive oral report from the San Joaquin County Board of Homeless Ad Hoc Committee, discuss next steps and consider adding a position within neighborhood preservation, direct staff to bring back a plan for any implementation based on discussion, and approve an appropriation increase of $30,000 in the Board of Supervisors budget to be funded by the contingency provision budget for the purpose of hiring consultants. So, Supervisor Patty, it is all yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to revisit back on April 11, 2 months ago, we had a motion that was made, and apparently it really hamstrung us that we could not go through a hiring process until we spent money with the consultant, which was not the spirit of what I had intended when we agendized the use and the potential utility of needing to hire any consultants as a possibility to advise us and put together a plan for that department or that position that we discussed through neighborhood preservation and Director Dietrich. So what we're looking to do is amend this, and in light of that, in the past few weeks, we understand there's going to be an open position in the county. So I believe at this time we need to restructure the utility, still utilize what would be potentially $30,000 as a consultant. There is great utility and a lot of engagement with local nonprofits as it relates to the homeless crisis that we have here in the county. But as it relates to hiring somebody, we should not be prohibited to go through the hiring process until we spend money. That money is available and should be available as we need to develop any type of long-term, short-term, long-term plan in conjunction with people we may hire. So that's why this is back on the agenda, that we just basically restructure the utility and not be limited in the hiring scope by the mandate of spending money as allocated, this $30,000 for a consultant. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, I believe, through the chair, county council. Is that kind of clear? Did I give too much wordsmithing on that?
If I understand correctly, and it sounds as if you are suggesting that the board approve filling the position while simultaneously maintaining the $30,000 for consulting to do other related things, but that the $30,000 consulting not be expended for purposes of determining whether or not to fill the position. So in other words, you'd use the $30,000 in consulting for other related issues, but the board would approve filling the position at this point in time.
That's correct. Position or positions. Director Dietrich has a great handle. HR, myself and Supervisor Canepa are engaged on this. So yes, that is correct. $30,000 would still be available for consulting and any type of planning that we need. But here we are 2 months later, and we literally have not been able to hire anybody to fill the position and to start to address this unsheltered homeless crisis we have here in San Joaquin County. So I think that's pretty much clear with where we're at. That's all, Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Petty. All right, seeing nobody in the queue, open up for public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to address the board on this item? And none, bring it back to the board for discussion. If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion, got a second? Got a Supervisor Ning as a second, so let's go ahead and go with the vote.
Chairman, for clarity through the chair, County Council says 4/5 vote required. Are we okay if we have 4-0?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, it's adopted 4-0 with our Vice Chair, Miguel Villapudua, is absent. All right, move on to item number 4. Cruising right along here. Authorize the use of let's try that again. Authorize use of $2,104,000 of a American Rescue Plan. I have $2,104,000 on my. That's what I said, wasn't it? All right, let's start that again. Authorize use of $2,104,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funding for the Groundwater Monitoring Improvement Project in support of the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Authority Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and authorize fund transfer. And this is from my office, and before I turn it over to our Public Works Director, now the recommendation is from my office: authorize the use of ARPA funding for groundwater monitoring improvement project in support of the Eastern San Joaquin County Groundwater Authority Sustainability Plan implementation, and authorize the amount I just mentioned, the ARPA fund, to Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Authority Fund, which is number 21451. On March 11th, let's see, the GWA, the Groundwater Authority, is a joint powers agency consisting of 16 groundwater sustainability agencies, 2 of which are governed by the board, who are responsible to implement a GSB for the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Subbasin. The Groundwater Authority GSB identifies management actions to accomplish the following: 1, fill data gaps; 2, develop monitoring wells to track and understand surface and groundwater interactions; and 3, equip wells with instrumentation to improve data collection at key monitoring locations. To address these requirements, the GWA proposes a project that will involve design and construction of the following: 5 shallow monitoring wells, 2 nested delta wells to track salt migration, and up to 6 additional wells, including installation of monitoring hardware at key locations. Key elements of the proposed project include project management, site selection, permitting, design, environmental clearance, easement acquisition, drilling, well logging, and equipment acquisition installation. General breakdown of estimated project cost is shown in the agendized item. Bless you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Fritz, and let you have anything to add?
No, I think you summarized the request very well. Happy to address any questions if there are any.
Motion to approve.
That's quick. A motion? Can we just get a second, then we'll go to discussion?
Second.
We got a second, a motion and a second. All right, before we take a vote, we'll have discussion. Supervisor Canepa.
This isn't the most sexy thing in the world, obviously groundwater, but it's important and it's vital because on that one tour that we went, it's kind of the same thing, right? How East Bay Mud was using the water re-injection. So this is going to kind of do the same thing on a more grandiose scale, correct?
This monitors how well we're doing, and I'll note that sexy is in the eye of the beholder, and this is kind of sexy to engineers. But yeah, this will help us monitor how this will help us monitor how well we're doing with projects like the DREAM project and managing groundwater resources in the subbasin sustainably, which I'll note includes portions of all 5 districts.
No, and I thank you for the work that you do because I mean it is kind of exciting, but not that way. But so it's because this will be managed in perpetuity, though, right? I mean, so is there funding for this after the 2.1? You know what I mean, or does it fall off? I mean, so we're not going to spend this money and then.
That's correct. This is a one-time capital need, but ultimately the Groundwater Authority will have to continue investing to use the monitoring tools and replace them as needed because the management of the groundwater in the basin is a permanent obligation.
And this is a great use of this money because all of these different funds don't have a lot of capital improvement project funds, right? I mean.
Yeah, and it's allowed under ARPA for underwater and sewer system infrastructure improvements, and it's a good choice because it's something we can confidently say we can implement within required timelines.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Canepa. So, Fritz, would you say you were bringing sexy back then? All right. With that, you don't need a hand for that. With that, I'll open up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to address the board on this item? And none, we'll bring it back to the board and Supervisor Canepa.
I just wanted to hear you sing that song. So.
Oh God, no! You don't want to see that. No, thank you, Fritz, for being here. I think the board. I mean, again, I brought this forward, but it's not just my district; it's throughout the county, and it's something that we have to be diligent of. Is our groundwater and the condition of it, and how we progress forward. So again, and folks that don't know, you sit on that board also, and you're doing a heck of a job. So I appreciate all your work that you do on the GWA.
Thank you very much.
So, we have a motion and a second already, so let's go ahead and go with the vote. And it is adopted and passed 5-0. All right, we're just cruising right on along here. Move on to item number 5, accept construction. I don't know why I can't speak today. I think I'm just hungry. Item number 5, accept construction labor market report and direct staff to any next steps. So, County Council, does that have you on the as a staff on this?
We have Kieran here.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Oh.
My mic on?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Terrific. I'm Karen Burke, Deputy County Counsel. Next to me is Gary Kraft of Kraft Consulting. He will be presenting his analysis and report on the county's labor market and construction industry. But before he does that, I'd like to provide you with some brief context. At the January 11th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting, County Council at that time provided a report on adopting a local hire policy and asked for direction at that meeting. County Council's report was prompted by some board members, interest expressed by some board members to explore a local hire ordinance where county residents would be hired for county construction projects. County Council at that time informed the board that a local hire ordinance that discriminated against non-residents would violate the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the U.S. Constitution, unless the county could establish that non-residents are the cause of a discrete, identifiable problem such as unemployment. An adoption of a local ordinance would be directed at remedying that problem. The board accepted that report, and the county issued a RFP to retain the services of a labor market consultant who could provide a labor market analysis of the county's construction industry for the purpose of exploring a local hire ordinance and supporting a local hire ordinance. Currently, the county has a local hire policy that's set forth in the county administrative manual at section 2736.1. That policy requires bidders to submit a local hire information form indicating the specific efforts they will take to promote local hire on county construction projects valued at $200,000 and above. So with that, let's turn to Mr. Kraft, who will give his presentation on his report and analysis and can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Coming in loud and clear.
Great. Well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present our research findings on the local construction labor market here in San Joaquin County. We've enjoyed working with legal counsel, public works, and the general services staff on this assignment. We hope that the analysis helps facilitate your decision-making process regarding local hire policy options. Kraft Consulting Group was retained to analyze the local construction industry to determine whether labor market conditions justify the creation of a local hire policy, and if so, what is the appropriate policy option for the county to adopt. We took a data-driven approach that included the collection and analysis of industry data, a survey of local construction firms, labor market information, estimation of the number of local jobs that could be created from future public spending, and a review of local hire policy best practices. As legal counsel stated, in order to withstand legal scrutiny, local hire programs that mandate I should be changing the,
You put on that work, you might as well show us the slides.
Sorry about that.
But we do have it in front of us also. So. And Mr. Kraft, if you break it, you buy it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's on.
I have to put down a deposit here.
You can do it manually.
Yes.
Craft. So if you just notify staff and you want to advance to the next slide, we can do that.
Okay. So if you can advance it to the next slide. Okay, as County Council mentioned, in order to withstand legal scrutiny, local hire programs that mandate a specified percentage of local participation must be supported by a labor market study which, one, shows a substantial reason or need for the program, provides evidence justifying the reasons for discrimination against non-residents, and three, establishes a nexus showing that the local hire program is narrowly tailored to correct the underlying reasons or need for adopting of the program. Slide. So one of the justifications for adoption of a local hire policy includes the existence of persistent high unemployment and evidence that San Joaquin County construction workers are not getting a fair share of public sector construction jobs. Persistent high unemployment occurs when an average annual local unemployment rate is more than 20% higher than the statewide average for 2 out of the last 5 years. So that's the criteria that we do our analysis. Fair share, typically, fair share goals are typically between 20 and 50% of the number of jobs on a particular construction project. Next slide. The economic context in which the labor market, construction labor market operates in, finds that San Joaquin County sits astride a large regional economy with a growing population of 800,000 plus residents. That the county's diverse economy supports more than 270,000 jobs spread across 20 major industry sectors. Since 2011, the county has had a comparatively strong employment growth rate. The construction industry is the 8th largest employment sector, employing more than 14,000 workers and contributing more than almost $2 billion in economic output. Next slide, please. Since the 2011 post-recession period, construction jobs have expanded faster than the local economy, growing at about 8.3% annually, compounded annually, whereas the overall economy has been growing around 3% annually. Next slide, please. Majority of workforce in the county commutes to jobs outside the outside the county. You can see that about 147,000 workers leave the county every day to go to jobs elsewhere, primarily in the Bay Area. Another 130,000 worker jobs, or local workers work at jobs here in San Joaquin County, and another 100,000 commute into San Joaquin County for work. Next job, please. Majority of jobs in San Joaquin County, however, are held by workers that also live and work or live within the local and regional labor market. Next slide. The construction industry is unique and different from other industries in that most jobs are project-oriented, that unemployment is affected by the weather conditions and project duration. Overall, the construction industry tends to have a higher unemployment rate than the overall economy due to seasonal unemployment and the temporary nature of construction projects. Next slide, please. The industry is heavily male-dominated. You can see more than 90% of the workforce and jobs are held by men, and that there's a surplus of labor with 20,000 plus resident construction workers and only 14,000 construction jobs. Next slide. Workforce is also an aging workforce where 1 in 5 construction workers is older than 55. About 20% of the workforce is on the right-hand side, 55 and older, whereas the younger generation, 14 to 25, is only about 10% entering. So you have a workforce over the next 10 years that's going to be retiring, and there's a need to bring on younger workers. Slide, please. You have a racially diverse workforce. However, Hispanics are overrepresented in the construction industry compared with their fair share of total employment, while Asians are underrepresented. Between 2011 and 2021, the percentage of Hispanics workers went from 50% to over 70%. White workers went from about 40% down to 20%. Next slide, please. There is a concentration of workers in less skilled occupations, and the reason for the concentration is that the lower skilled occupations do not require a high school diploma and extensive workforce training. Next slide, please. There is also a surplus of labor in many construction occupations that you can see down in the lower part of the graph. Those are construction trades with a surplus of labor. Next slide, please. That labor surplus is expected to continue over the next 5 to 10 years, and that surplus of labor is either going to work outside the San Joaquin County or work part-time or be unemployed. So what are some of our findings? Next slide, please. Local contractors to date have been successful in competing for county projects. About 82% of the contracts that are awarded go to local contractors. In terms of the value of the projects, about 62%. That has to do with the specialized nature. Some of these projects require outside labor where there's no local contractor. Next slide, please. Most local contractors are locally based. This takes into consideration that many local contractors win multiple contracts, so about 40% of the contractors are located here in San Joaquin County. Another 15% are located within the regional labor market, so over half are really local contractors. Next slide, please. So the overall unemployment rate for the local economy is within the healthy range, having declined from historical highs in the post-recession period. And as you can see, the unemployment rate here in San Joaquin County, while it's declined, is still higher than the California or U.S. unemployment rates. Next slide, please. For the past 6 years, the construction sector does not meet the criteria for persistent high unemployment. In fact, it has been below the statewide average for the past 3 years, which is counter to the criteria of being higher, 20% higher than the statewide average. Next slide, please. Local construction workers also have a high percentage of workers that are employed full-time compared to the state or the U.S. Almost 80% of construction workers in construction workforce in San Joaquin County is employed full-time year-round, compared to the 72% for the United States and California. Next slide, please. Underemployment in the construction trades is also lower than the regional labor market. As you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, it's the lowest compared to nearby counties in the Bay Area or the state or the national level. Next slide, please. Unemployment, however, in the construction industry is higher among certain population groups. Workers with the highest level of unemployment include youth and young adults, African Americans, older veterans, and individuals lacking high school diplomas. Next slide. Some of our key findings include the current unemployment rate does not justify a broad-based local hire policy at this time, that unemployment in the construction industry has been declining and is currently below the statewide average, and that low underemployment with 24% of the construction workforce employed less than full-time. There is a need to expand apprenticeship programs and opportunities and to target and attract demographic groups with high unemployment rates. Your current local business preference policy helps make local contractors more competitive, and you can see that in the outcomes in terms of the contracts that have been awarded. And that while we didn't have the data to analyze the workforce, we know that local contractors tend to hire more workers from the local and regional labor market. Next slide, please. Okay, local hire policies vary in scope from good faith efforts with aspirational goals to mandatory requirements with strict benchmarks and penalties for failing to achieve a set percentage of local workers. First level of basic local hire policy with just a statement of intent and incentive to encourage local employment. An example of that would be the existing San Joaquin County policy. The next level up would be a first source hiring program with good faith efforts to hire local qualified workers. That includes the City of Stockton's local hire policy and the City of Sacramento's policy. Going to a mandatory local hire requirement with a specified percentage of local workers begins to require in-depth labor market analysis and disparity studies. An example of that would be the City of San Francisco. There's also a concept called targeted hire, which is focused not on the geographic areas, but on the demographic characteristics and demographic groups with low-income geographic areas. An example of that type of local hire policies is Los Angeles County. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we feel that it's premature for the county to adopt a mandatory local hire requirement at this time, that mandatory goals must show a substantial reason for the difference in treatment between residents and non-residents, and we're not seeing that substantial difference. Realistic goals should be based on labor market conditions and the availability of local workers with the necessary skills to meet the employer demands. Next slide, please. So our recommendation would be, if you want to move to the next level, would be first of all to develop a baseline statistical data on the percentage of local residents employed on county construction projects that are needed to justify the establishment of realistic local hire goals. If statistical data demonstrates local workers are underrepresented, a voluntary first source hiring program would provide local construction workers the opportunity to be considered before non-resident workers. This is still more of a voluntary program, not a mandatory program, so it doesn't require the same level of study and analysis. Next slide. And with that, open for any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for a very thorough report. I'll bring it back to the board and Supervisor Canepa.
I just had a couple questions. What is commute shed?
Commute shed is basically beyond 60 minutes an hour. So it goes down to Fresno, goes over to San Jose in the parts of the Bay Area.
People from the county leaving and going there? Is that what it's...
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then, so how, with these numbers, how many people does it say fell off of doing construction jobs? Where is that in the data? I mean, people that are no longer in the construction field.
I'm not sure that data is available, so I didn't take a look at that.
Okay, so in order to do this, you said it needed to be 150% of the unemployment in the area. So, I mean, that's not attainable.
No, to be considered high persistent unemployment, it should be 20% higher than the statewide average. And for the last two out of the last 3 years. If you look at what slide it is, but if you look at...
So we're under the state average.
You're under the state average. If you look at slide 21, I believe it is. Possible to go back to slide 21? You'll see that the dash line at the top of the go to 22, I'm sorry.
Was it 20?
It was 20, yeah. I inserted as extra slide. So if you look at the top of the graph, the dashed line is 20% or higher. The red square is the state of California's construction unemployment rate. And the blue line is the San Joaquin County's construction unemployment rate. So it's below, for the last 3 years, has been below the statewide average.
Okay, and then, so in some of the areas, can you do percentages of local hire? Say 80-20, is that an option to do?
It's certainly an option to do. But again, as soon as you start establishing precise mandatory goals, then you have to justify that, to demonstrate that non-residents are the cause of that high unemployment. And right now, as I understand it, that data doesn't exist. So you have to document that over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Patty.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the County Counsel's Office and our data analysts here for putting together a very comprehensive study. I know that myself and other supervisors have asked about this, talked about it. We've had local organizations come in asking for some support here. Can you explain to me the difference between what we currently have, a basic local hire policy, versus the first source hiring program that's noted, exampled in Stockton and Sacramento?
So as County Counsel mentioned in her introduction, we have a current policy that encourages local hire. It does not set any goals, but there's a bidder's form that's included to say what actions that the contractor has taken to hire local workers. Okay, but it's totally voluntary. There's no goals established. There's no process to hire local workers. It just says what actions have the contractor taken. First source hiring program is the next step up, where it actually says you have to go, each contractor has to go through a first source hiring program, working with the local workforce board to identify a qualified group of unemployed construction workers. So but it does not set goals again. So it doesn't require that same level of analysis.
So perhaps it's a step up. It's a little more robust level of engagement.
Yeah, that's correct.
And we could do that without having to prove a metrics of disparity? That's correct. Okay. Because I know that there are some projects that have happened, and we'll hear a project planning individual come in and say, we've got the spirit of, and we're going to, and they don't. Right. They've done nothing. We've had a couple of big projects, and we've got organized labor representatives come in and go, zero employment opportunity locally. So I'd like to see us do something. And in order, through the chair to county council, if we wanted to go with something like a first source hiring program, look at that verbiage and bring it to the board to consider. We need to agendize that in the future and have county council perhaps bring something to us?
That's correct. You would direct staff to look into the issue and come back to the board with a proposal. And you could agendize that.
Okay, thank you. And that will be with the direction I want to go. And the reason why is I've personally taken an interest. I've sat down with the developers and with their contractor and had some engaged conversations directly related with workforce representatives. And there's a level of there's that level of engagement that's more robust than just the spirit of, and check the boxes, and there may be the attempt, but it really doesn't at times prove to come to fruition. So for this board to consider, my idea is we should, I think, direct county council to come back with a first source hiring program criteria that we could discuss and possibly adopt.
The first source hiring program would be the next step up without triggering the requirement for this mandatory disparity studies.
Okay, this was great, very comprehensive, and I appreciate county council's office going to this degree and this information that you brought forward, very comprehensive and helpful.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Patty. Supervisor Canepa.
Thank you, Chair. So that last sentence that you said, the mandatory disparity, that would be if you went the other route.
Yeah, if you set mandatory requirements and establish goals, and you have a whole set procedure that's mandatory for the contractor to follow. And then at that point in time, you have to then justify the fact that non-residents are the cause of the unemployment.
And that's a slippery slope to prove that.
But yes, very slippery slope.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll open up for public comment. Any member from the public wish to address the board on this item? And none, we'll bring it back to the board. And thank you both, and Counselor, thank you for being here. And thank you for a very comprehensive and educational report. And with that being said, we have two actions. We need a motion. We can do it all in one motion. Motion to accept, and Supervisor Patty, you mentioned the first source. If you could include that in your motion, would be good.
Chairman, if you're looking for a motion, I would make a motion to accept the construction labor market analysis report prepared by Craft Consulting Group. And again, thank you for an excellent report. And I would ask staff to come back to us through County Council with a first source hiring program criteria for this board to discuss and potentially adopt.
Second.
All right, you got a motion and second. Get a vote, please. All right, it's adopted 5-0. Again, thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much for this report.
Thank you.
I know I said we'll go to closed session 11:30. However, with the board's approval, we have one more item to go, which is item number 6. So if
let's go.
There's not any dissent, we will move to item number 6. Approve the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023, 2024 through 2027, 2028. Ms. Hart.
Good morning, Chair. Board members, Council, CAO, Marcia Cunningham, Director of General Services. And today we're going to be providing an overview of the 5-year capital improvement plan, or also it's called the CIP, developed by our capitals project team with the assistance of ISD. With me today is Connie Hart, Assistant Director of General Services, and Daniel Moore, the Capital Projects Administrator. Before we begin, I would like to recognize the hard work of both Daniel and Connie, and our amazing team who worked diligently to compile this information and make it available in the CIP you will see today. Also, I'd like to recognize Robert Johnston with ISD for creating the design and professional look that you'll see in the CIP before you. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Connie Hart.
Good morning, still good morning. Chairman Rickman, members of the board. Briefly, I'd like, let's see. Go to the next slide. Thank you. I'll have a few animations, Nicole, so I might just say click. Briefly, I'd like to review what the CIP is and what it is not. It is not a comprehensive countywide plan, and it does not include capital projects planned by Public Works or enterprise budgets for the airport or the hospital. The CIP before you details the capital projects planned over the next 5 years for county facilities managed by the Capital Projects Division of GSD and are included in the public improvement budget that is estimated to result in more than 500,000 additional square feet of space. Since the full scope of many of the projects is still not known, that 500,000 square footage increase is a very conservative estimate and may be much higher. Like the public improvement budget, the CIP is broken into 2 categories: new construction and facilities planning, that includes real property acquisition, building construction, and facilities planning activities. Second category is existing facilities and parks improvements and represents those major projects to improve existing county facilities and parks. Last year, we took a new approach to update the CIP annually rather than waiting until the end of the 5-year period. Every year, GSD will return to your board with a summary of accomplishments for the past year, updates to future years, and will include 1 additional year. Thus, the CIP will always be looking 5 years into the future. Next slide. There are several purposes and benefits to having an up-to-date and targeted CIP. The CIP will provide a mechanism for documenting county priorities with regard to facilities projects, manage both funding and staffing resources, and provide a roadmap for making budget recommendations, and provide a clear timeline for all phases of project delivery. Next slide. Capital Projects Division has been extremely busy during 22-23 and has several major accomplishments. Some of the major milestones reached are completion of the new public health facility. After more than a decade, the county received formal approval from the state to proceed to construction documents and construction of SB 1022 detention and program facility. The construction contract was awarded by your board on May 2nd, and construction activities are scheduled to commence in early 23-24. Also, the Jail Central Controls project reached substantial completion in April of 2023 and was followed by testing and acceptance by the Sheriff's Office. Full completion of the project is anticipated in fall 2023. Significant progress was made on the adult residential treatment modular campus, with project completion anticipated in fall of 2023. The 6 South El Dorado, or former InShape, program validation and design phases reached conclusion with early construction activities started at the end of 22-23 fiscal year. This project for the DA is on track to be completed by the end of calendar year 2024. Capital Projects worked with purchasing to go out to RFP for an architectural and engineering consultant for the design of 4 prefab metal structures to be installed on county-owned land, 3 for the Sheriff's Office and 1 for Emergency Medical Services. All 4 are on track for completion before the end of calendar year 2024. And finally, the marketplace solicitation for the construction contract for the new morgue is in progress and is anticipated to come before your board for approval in early 23-24. I'd like to recognize the Capital Projects team for their diligence and amazing work ethic in getting the morgue project to this point. They have been confronted with multiple obstacles and hurdles that were not anticipated and have met those challenges each and every time. From procurement issues to shifting programmatic needs, the Capital Projects team has shown that they can meet and exceed expectations, bringing us to this critical milestone of awarding design build construction contract in early 23-24. I'd like to add that we are extremely proud of the diligence and hard work put in by Capital Projects team. They have accomplished 100% of the major milestones and goals set for the 22-23 fiscal year. I'd like to hand it over, so next slide, please. I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Daniel Moore, our Capital Projects Administrator, who will take you through some of the costs over the next 5 years.
Thank you, Connie. So we have some animation, so we're going to note click at certain junctures. Clerk of the board, thank you. Good morning again, board. This slide that we're looking at provides a quick overview of the anticipated cost plan for appropriation over the 5-year period covered by the CIP. Year 1, or fiscal year 23-24, the first bar there, thank you. We will move into the construction phase of several projects that had A&E efforts completed in fiscal year 22-23, as Connie referenced, including the long-awaited SB 1022 detention facility. During year 2, or fiscal year 24-25, we will be wrapping up several construction efforts, including the SB 1022 detention facility, the new morgue, tenant improvements at the 6 South El Dorado Street facility, the EMS replacement facility, and 3 additional projects for the Sheriff's Office. In year 3, or fiscal year 25-26, we'll be focused on concluding design efforts for the next wave of capital projects that would include the Lovelace Transfer Station replacement, the Hazleton Complex replacement, and the demolition of the old courthouse. Lastly, years 4 and 5, or fiscal years 26-27 and 27-28, we'll have a heavy construction focus on this next wave of projects that would then be designed. Next slide, please. Before you will see 16 total projects that total $341.3 million, including in the first category of new construction and facilities planning. They include 3 projects for healthcare services, the morgue replacement, the EMS replacement facility and warehouse, and a replacement of the facility at 420 South Wilson Way. The Sheriff's Office will receive 4 of these facilities: the SB 1022 detention facility, an inmate classroom facility, a staff training facility, and a new evidence storage facility. Other projects include the tenant improvements and renovations of 6 South El Dorado Street, or the former InShape building, for the district attorney, the demolition of the old courthouse, architectural and engineering efforts for the Law and Justice Center, preliminary design for development of a South County park, and new facilities for the Lovelace Transfer Station, the Hazleton Complex, Office of Emergency Services, and a Registrar of Voters. As you know, construction completion dates are generally ballpark estimates until the start of construction. The marketplace dictates the duration of actual construction activities. With that in mind, we'd like to draw your attention to 2 projects where we updated estimates for project completion. First off is the morgue facility with an estimated completion date of June 2025, based off of what we're seeing thus far with the in-progress marketplace solicitation. Secondly, and there was some discussion about this earlier, the SB 1022 detention facility project timeline is dictated by the state of California. And since the printing of the CIP document, they've communicated the updated completion date is June 2025. And just for clarity, we issued formal notice to proceed in June of last month. It's expected to be a 22-month construction timeline and then a 60-day process for transition, which would get us to June 2025. Moving forward, capital projects will begin sending your board quarterly memos with updates to timeline and costs for all projects included in the 5-year CIP. You can anticipate the first memo at the end of the first quarter of fiscal year 23-24 in October of 2023. Next slide, please. The existing facility and parks improvement section totals $83.7 million and includes major renovation or upgrade projects for existing facilities. Included are ARPA-funded park projects, the final phase of upgrading the jail central control system, and a replacement of the roof of the behavioral health facility at 1212 North California Street. This year, we added an entry to represent all other capital projects that are minor in nature as anticipated other existing facilities costs. Typically, the Capital Projects Division oversees 30 to 40 non-major capital projects with an overall cost ranging from $10 to $20 million annually. For instance, these types of projects total $14.7 million in fiscal year 23-24. In order to provide the board and the members of the public with more transparency, the General Services Department decided to include $15 million per year in anticipation of these types of unknown minor capital projects. This is an enhancement to the document from last year. Next slide, please. Once approved by your board, the capital improvement plan may be accessed beginning tomorrow on the Capital Projects webpage via the hyperlink that's featured on the slide in front of us. Next slide, please. At this time, the General Services Department would recommend that your board adopt the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023 to 24 through fiscal year 2027 to 28.
Before your board takes action on the recommendation, I would like to make an offer, give you an opportunity, if you so choose, to receive very brief updates on the ARPA-funded community center upgrade projects and our major parks projects. If that's something your board would be interested in receiving at this time.
Board, anybody? Okay, we have good.
Okay, thank you. It will just take a few more minutes of your time. Next slide, please. Back one. There we go. As you know, on August 23rd, 2022, your board approved $6.3 million in ARPA funds for repairs, upgrades, and equipment purchases for the 8 community centers. Your board appropriated $2.3 primarily for roof replacements and HVAC replacements in the community centers during 22-23. This slide shows the progress of those efforts to date, and actually one of them concluded after I finished this slide. So we had planned to replace the roofs on 6 of the 8 community centers. To date, we have completed the installation of 3 roofs, with 2 in progress, and the final roof for Kennedy Community Center is actually scheduled to begin this week, I believe on the 13th. Additionally, all 8 community centers are receiving new HVAC equipment. The replacement of the systems was delayed due to supply chain issues, but we have received some of the equipment, and the remainder is scheduled for delivery by mid-October. 7 of the community center exteriors have been repainted in the last 2 years. The final community center, Garden Acres, will receive extensive repairs and new exterior paint in 23-24. Facilities management will continue the community center work that was earmarked for 22-23, as well as taking on the projects earmarked for 23-24. This second wave of projects includes flooring replacement, kitchen remodels. I know you're going to like that, Chair Rickman. Kitchen remodels, security upgrades, and walkway and parking lot repairs. The 23-24 facilities management budget includes $2.3 million in appropriations to accomplish those projects. Now I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Judy Bassfinder, our Parks Administrator, for a brief Parks update.
So the few major projects for Parks and Recreation, I wanted to give you an update on the Mickey Grove Park Water and Sewer Tie-In Project. It's continued collaboration between the City of Lodi, San Joaquin County Public Works, and Park and Recreation, and our partner Vanner. Our next steps are to approve an MOU between the county and City of Lodi to provide reimbursement fees to the related applications, mapping, things like that. The next one is our Giannone Park, is a sewer tie-in with the City of Stockton. We are in progress. Parks and Recreation is also contracted with Vanner to prepare the construction documents and cost estimates. At the date of completing this slide, we were at 60% complete. As of last Wednesday, we are closer to 75% complete. I have received the cost estimates and construction documents, which are going to in front of the CDD for approval this week. The next one is the South County Regional Park Phase 1 conceptual design. We are in progress. We have done we are about 90% complete with our draft conceptual design. Once again, this was done prior to this. Our next steps were to meet with the City of Tracy to discuss their master plan and their public opinion results, which we had spoken to them last week, and the City of Tracy did share their 20-year master plan and also included their parks master plan, which was not part of their public record at this time. They have supplied that to us, and we are in the middle of going through and looking through their results. The next, we are planning our conceptual plan presentation to the Board of Supervisors. Right now it says December 23rd. I think we have bumped that up to the first board meeting of November at this time. That concludes my project updates. If anybody has any questions, I am here to answer them.
Anybody from the board? Supervisor Canepa.
Just had Supervisor Ding's $1.6 million match. How does that?
That is actually the Historical Society, which is not part of my Parks and Recreation. They are a different entity, just within Mickey Grove.
Okay, so then like the planning comes through you guys, or how does that work? Or
Most likely what would happen based on our current operating agreement and work that we're doing on actually updating that agreement, working with the CAO's office and the Historical Society. They would present to us, which they have already presented, parts of their master plan. This is one component of the master plan, the Pioneer Village expansion and enhancement. That's the piece that Supervisor Ding spoke to, and the $1.6 million matching funds. So once they have, as Mr. Merlo indicated, once they have secured their funds and they have a very clear path forward and plans and drawings, then most likely they would present that to General Services, County Administrator's Office, to open discussion, and then ultimately present that to your board for approval to move forward. Like Ms. Bassfinder said, it's the piece of land that is dedicated to the Historical Society, which is within Mickey Grove Park, and the Historical Society actually rents that from, or leases that from the county for $12 a year, and has done so since the early 60s when they were initially established. But because it is county land, any improvements on that property does have to have board approval before.
Thanks for clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Patty.
Thank you, Chairman. Question, seems absent any zoo plans. Did I miss something? What's going on at the zoo?
Right now, the zoo is, the major project at the zoo was the electrical upgrades. We are in phase 3, which we're going to be starting construction of the conceptual planning and the updates to the electrical grid that is scheduled for 23-24 as part of the project there. Getting all the electrical redistributed, having our backup generators in place, reconverting refrigerator, freezers, and all that kind of stuff over to the, so we can swap that on and over to generators when we need to. Was the first major plan for the zoo at this point in time, because that infrastructure needs to be in place before we can move forward with other projects.
Got it. Be nice to see this, the 5-year plan, and it'd be nice to see if there was something. Elk Grove, as you may be aware, is doing a brand new zoo, and we're kind of archaic in what we're doing. We've talked about it. I've been here 6.5 years. We've talked about different possibilities of the zoo, but I'm not seeing any.
Right, at this point, yeah, correct. At this point in time, the zoo is a 60-year-old zoo that had 0 major infrastructure projects done to it in those 60 years. At one point in time, there was that, the whole East End area, which was, as you know, 16 years ago was shelved. That as part of the electrical upgrades, we are relooking at that East End development area to bring in new exhibits to that area. The construction, we have actually done some of that, the conceptual designs for that, and I can bring that back to this board in a future board meeting to show those conceptual designs. But once again, the infrastructure electrical grade has to be completed first. But we are moving forward with that, new exhibits, new space, new updated and East End development.
So it almost seems like the cart before the horse. So we're doing upgrades, but for what? We're doing upgrades because one day we're going to...
Had no capacity, and we are actually had issues. We're not doing the cart before the horse. The electrical upgrade had to be done. The items and things that we get, basic necessities, were not being met.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I get that it's an antiquated, old system, right, the infrastructure, so I totally get that. But if I were to be putting money into an infrastructure, I'd like to see the vision of what it's going to be. Why would we put money into an infrastructure if there's no vision, if there's no plan, if there's no concept of, we're going to spend X amount of dollars on an infrastructure? The reason why is because we've got, ta-da, look at this new picture, this rendering of where our future is bringing us. And I'm not seeing that. Yes, Director Cunningham, through the chair.
So I just want to point out, through the chair, that this is not all of our projects. You would not award us the amount of time that we would need to be in this board chambers. There is a 5-year strategic plan, and there are lots of activities beyond just the electrical upgrade. That's one of the steps forward. There are designs to utilize the East End. I think Judy did reference that. There's been new animals brought to the zoo. There are other enhancements. The accreditation is moving forward. She's looking at putting in the golf course at Mickey Grove, which is adjacent to it and complements the zoo. So there's a lot of other projects in all aspects, from capitals to facilities to parks to the zoo. We just don't have time to sit here in this board chamber and go through every single project. Now, if you would like for us to come back and give an update specifically on the zoo and where we are from that 5-year strategic plan, we could do that for you.
Yeah, I'd like, instead of being defensive about
Oh, not at all. No, not at all. It's truly that as part of the infrastructure and part of the 5-year strategic plan, there are additional areas to it, and one of them is collection planning, accreditation, all those items that have additional updates that can go with it that I'm more than happy to present to this board.
I'd be thrilled to see a vision of that's not what I don't see it. I know Elk Grove has held meetings in the public and saying, ta-da, here's our new vision. Here's where we're going with our multi-acre new zoo in Elk Grove. And while we're supporting infrastructure, as defensive as you may be about this, and it's justifiable to do the infrastructure, I totally get it, but absent is vision. So what's it going to look like? What's the idea? Where can we go? What's that possible allocation? Where can we go through the CAO's office? How do we get there with whatever this vision is? Are we going to do an exhibit? We've done all this infrastructure improvement, and we're going to do the most amazing Northern California exhibit of squirrels. We're going to have the greatest squirrel zoo in the history of California. It'll be wonderful. We're going to spend multi-millions of dollars to do it. Or you've got a vision that's going to bring forth, a lot of public support, some buy-in, some feedback, some of the ideas that your public that we serve would love to see incorporated. So that's just an idea. Director Cunningham, just on another subject, when we charge people, I was just thinking about when people come in and do miniature golf and such. What is the annual revenue for parking at any of our parks, let alone, and perhaps you know this as it relates to Mickey Grove, how much we're charging, and if we're charging people to come in and they may want to go do miniature golf, then are they getting a discount at miniature golf, or miniature golf is free, or do we even need to charge to come into Mickey Grove? The question I have.
I can answer that. As part of the facility-related budget request that we did for the Mickey Grove Golf Course, there is going to be a small additional fee for that additional recreation for the miniature golf. All said and done, after staff time, all the operation costs, it would increase revenue at Mickey Grove Park about $120,000 annually.
The
Mickey Grove Golf, the miniature golf course itself.
Miniature golf course itself would
Correct.
bring in $100-something thousand.
Correct.
Okay, if we looked at just parking alone, coming into Mickey Grove because you want to do a picnic, you want to visit and possibly go to the zoo and such, how much do we bring in revenue annually on parking alone? Does anybody have that answer?
At Mickey Grove Park alone is right around $500,000 a year.
$500,000 in revenue from parking alone.
Correct.
Okay, wherever they may go from there.
Correct, exactly. So when we have our shelter rentals, if people are coming in for quinceañeras, if they're going over to play to the water feature, if they're going to the zoo, or just regular picnicking, yes, it's around $500,000 per year.
Okay, that was a good question. A good answer. Was curious on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, next question is Supervisor Ding.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm thrown off by that last number. I just thought the parking, I really thought it was higher than that. So it's okay, keep people out of our parks. On the zoo, and I'm with Tom, Supervisor Patty on this, on a plan, but just for my own interest, the way I understood it, and there is a lot more going on with this accreditation, and this group wants this, and this is my new accreditation board, and I've heard all of that. The acreage of the zoo is, what's the footprint again?
5 acres.
5 acres. My understanding is the general vision we're going is more of a children's zoo. I mean, we're not looking at, we can't compete with Elk Grove. I mean, we don't have the footprint to do what we want to do, but that was my idea, or what I heard conceptually was a children's zoo. Am I not on the same?
That has never been determined. As Supervisor Patty pointed out, we have not presented a vision for Mickey
Okay,
Grove.
I heard I might have been one of the other accreditation groups.
No, definitely. That's something that we can definitely look at. I can say that our demographics for in visitorship at Mickey Grove Zoo tends to be on a younger children's age, 2 to the 7-year-old, 2 to 8-year-old. So that is our demographics, and that's going to be the most, the amount of visitors there. But as we look at the vision for the zoo, that is going to be a conceptual vision that we have to actually truly look at as part of the, what we did a couple of years ago was basically just kind of look at the 5-year strategic plan to look and see what we needed to be doing in the immediate future. Looking a little bit more globally and a little bit more wider and broader would be coming back with a vision for Mickey Grove Zoo in the future. Children's Zoo, looking at those demographics are obviously going to be a part of that process.
Okay, then my final question. The different groups that have met with me about trying to get accreditation, and there's 2 different national accreditation boards that do accreditations of zoos, etc. I guess it's this cart and horse thing again. What comes first? If the facility getting the electrical, and then are we shopping this out to try to get a board in play? I mean, I guess, how does it all, you know what, I'm taking up too much time. Let's come back with a plan.
Just really quickly, as part of standardizations for any type of accreditation, they have standards that they provide a list of standards. Those standards that we have to look and see if we can beat at the times when we want to apply for accreditation. If we don't, those are definitely repairs that would need to be made prior to application process. And that's where we are right now. We have decided on an accredited body. We're going through those standards. We're making those upgrades and repairs needed so we can pass accreditation standards.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Ding. Anybody from the public wish to address the board on this item? And now we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Just real quick, thank you. I mean, hey, we all love, parks and so on. And I'm looking forward, as you know, South County Park. So it's cool to know that it's going to be sooner than later. I guess in November, right? All right. So I'm excited to see that. And of course, we discussed, Miguel and I, or Vice Chair and I, when we sent in our CIP meeting. I know for me, the community centers. So I'm looking forward to seeing the updates. It's the interior. I know we're doing the HVAC and stuff, but at least for me, my district and our only South County community center, and along with several other community centers, our interior kitchens, God, that stuff needs to be updated so bad. And that would be what? Did you say in 2024? 2024, right?
This fiscal year.
This fiscal, okay,
This
great.
fiscal year will be flooring, new flooring in all 8, kitchen upgrades, security upgrades, and parking lot and walkway repairs. Obviously, we'll need to focus on the exterior repairs during good weather.
Right.
And we'll likely leave the kitchens and flooring to handle during.
All right, cool. No, I'm looking forward to it. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And with that, do we need to make a motion to accept?
Move to approve.
Oh, go ahead and.
Second.
A motion and a second to accept. Get a roll call, please. Or excuse me, a vote, please. All right, it's adopted 4-0 with Supervisor Patty absent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, so before we go to closed session, or Counselor, do we have anything to report out? Do you think we're going to have anything to report out of closed session?
We might.
We might. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do our comments and committee reports first. Have anyone?
I'm good.
Anyone? All right, seeing none. All right, we will go to, well, I'll turn it over to you, Counselor, for a closed session. Do you have anything before we go in there?
No, just that we're going to close session for potential litigation, and we may or may not have reportable action thereafter.
Okay, can we go ahead and close out the board meeting here, or should we wait?
I would wait in case we have reportable action.
All right, folks, you heard it directly from our county council. We're going to move to closed session. Thank you. All right, we have a quorum. So, County Council, we have a report come out of closed session.
I do, yes. We went into closed session at 12:07, came out at 12:43. There was a motion made by Supervisor Kenepa and seconded by Supervisor Villaputa to enter into a legal proceeding to protect the interests of the county. That motion was approved by a vote of 5-0. The specifics of this legal proceeding will be made available upon request once the document has been filed.
All right, thank you. And that was it. And you said, all right, so with that, we will adjourn the Board of Supervisors meeting until July 25th at 9 a.m. for our next regular scheduled meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend, and thank you, deputies. Take care.